At Dungeon 2, Valley of Despair, a cool-looking man takes down a giant insect with one slick move. After the fight, he pulls out some beef jerky to snack on, but just the smell of it is enough to make his stomach churn. He's clearly fed up, groaning that this bland, dry food is actually making him nauseous. Crashing on a nearby rock, he vents loudly, calling the dungeon totally stupid, and wondering how the hell he's supposed to survive a full week with nothing but some mid-tier potions and this sad excuse for a meal. Laughing dryly, he questions what kind of outdated era this is. Like seriously, why the hell aren't they allowed to bring their own food? But then wait, his nose twitches. Something smells good. Not just good, it smells delicious. And it's coming from a truck in the distance. Flashback to 20 years ago, when everything changed. After a mysterious tower, later called the dungeon, appeared, the world fractured. Out of that chaos, people with strange, supernatural abilities began to emerge. These people were called the Awakened, or Hunters. They went on dangerous expeditions inside dungeons, facing monsters head-on. Society was rebuilt with their strength, but not without a cost. Countless hunters lost their lives in the process. Back to the present, the food truck that's giving off that amazing smell is now desperately trying to get away from monsters. Inside, the owner is crying behind the wheel. Poor girl isn't a hunter, can't fight, and is 100% sure this is the end for her. Her name is Juin. She's just a normal girl who awakened as a food truck owner. She sees the dead end coming fast, panic rising, but suddenly bam! A passive skill activates, making the truck bulletproof. She's huffing, trying to calm her nerves, when her fluffy cat reassures her that they're safe. It's the first time this passive skill has triggered, and apparently, it'll activate every time she's in this kind of danger. Juin breathes out a shaky laugh. Low-key, she's hella relieved. She asks the cat which floor they're even on. The cat tells her they're on floor 4. All the audio channels are still buzzing about hunters and dungeons like usual, stuff that has nothing to do with her. She used to be a happy girl, just trying to live her dream, running her little food truck business. She had just debuted with the truck when the system threw her a curveball. Bam, she awakened. Not as a hunter, but as a food truck owner. She still remembers the day she got the notification. Juin stared at the status window, her eyes going wide as a million screens popped up in front of her. She shouted, "What the hell is all this?" And honestly, valid. But right now, she's just happy she didn't get assigned a hunter class. Still, she did think it was a little sus when that page popped up. Her cat tells her she should open her shop again, and she nods. With her new skill, she even gets free ingredients, which makes everything 10 times easier. Suddenly, a system quest appears. She has to make sandwiches. Right now, Juin groans. She knows storing them will just make them all dry and sad. But she doesn't have a choice. She's got to follow the quest if she wants to level up. She picks up Blackie, her cat, who complains that animals aren't allowed in the area. Juin snaps back that this is a food truck, not a pet cafe, and his fur gets everywhere. Blackie argues that he's a spirit, not just a cat. And anyway, there's no customers right now. Juin sighs, totally over it. She's got so much to do and so little time. She tells herself to hurry up and gets to work washing the ingredients, prepping everything. While slicing up some fresh stuff, she glances at Blackie again and admits that she always wanted to raise a cat, just couldn't, because of her past circumstances. Blackie tilts his head and asks what those were, but Juin suddenly remembers she has stuff to prep and waves him off, telling him to stay right there while she finishes the sandwiches. She sneaks a bite of the egg and, oh wow, it's fire. Like, no joke, insanely delicious. Then she slices up a block of cheese, adds butter to the saucepan, and goes heavy on the meat. Unlike her mom, who was super stingy with it, she's planning to be generous with the bacon. But pre-cooking this much bacon is seriously annoying. The system alerts her that the quest is complete, but she's still stressed because the bacon isn't ready yet. Apparently though, that doesn't matter. Turns out she doesn't need to prep everything in advance. She just spreads the sauce, throws on the ingredients, stacks it all up, and cuts the sandwich cleanly. Done and dusted. Now all that's left is to promote the store and attract customers. Right on cue, she spots a hunter fighting a monster nearby. He glances at the food truck with the most confused face ever, like, is that really a food truck in a dungeon? Juin waves at him, all cheerful, and asks if he's a customer. She even offers him the sandwich she just made. The hunter stares at her, stepping closer, narrowing his eyes. And the only thought running through his mind? She must be some weird new kind of monster. The guy suddenly pulls out his sword, eyes sharp and on edge, ready to strike. Juin throws up her hands, half panicking, and blurts out, "Oh God, calm down. I'm a human, not a monster." She begs him to lower his weapon, trying to sound as normal and non-threatening as possible, explaining again that she's really just a person and that's sort of his. Yeah, it's seriously about to give her a heart attack. But this dude has a whole trust issue arc going on. He squints at her suspiciously, asking how he's supposed to believe her. What if she is some kind of monster that casts illusions? Juin rolls her eyes, completely done with this nonsense, and tells him straight up that he's the one crossing the line now. Like seriously, does he think every little thing can be solved by swinging a sword around? Then right in the middle of all that drama, they both hear his stomach grumble. Loudly, Juin stares at him, and the guy finally realizes what's actually been messing with his senses this whole time. Her truck. The delicious smell that's been haunting him? Yeah, it's all coming from that food truck. He looks a little embarrassed now, and she can't help but giggle inside, especially since she named the truck after herself. He narrows his eyes at the sandwiches, asking if they're actually real or just for display. Juin scoffs and points out that if he can smell the mouth-watering aroma, then obviously they're real. The guy sighs and says that even if this is all an illusion, he's ready to fall for it. He asks the price. It's 7,000 won for one sandwich. He looks offended. Seriously? 7,000? Cue Juin going full sales pitch mode. She starts yapping about how it's big, packed with high-quality ingredients, has amazing taste and smell, and wait for it, comes with 2 eggs per sandwich, plus good quality bacon and fresh lettuce. She's trying hard now, desperation kicking in. She pleads with him, saying she really needs to sell at least 10 of these today. She thinks to herself that this guy is seriously a tough customer, but she has no choice. She tells him she'll give it to him for 6,000 won, just because he's her first customer. He tilts his head, clearly thinking about it, then finally agrees. Juin lights up and quickly asks if he's paying with cash or card. But plot twist, he says he's got neither. No cash, no credit. He does, however, pull out a magic stone like it's a valid form of payment. Juin stares at it, disgusted. This thing's just a rock, brother. But whatever, since he's her first customer, she lets it slide. He thanks her and starts to walk off, but then pauses. Something about that rock suddenly seems not so ordinary. Before he leaves, he turns to her and says everything depends on her now, and casually wishes her good luck with her sales. But the second he takes a bite, boom, he's stunned. It's too good. Meanwhile, Juin is back in her sad girl era, low-key depressed that she only got one customer. But hey, she's still happy that she made at least one person eat and enjoy her food. She did treat him like royalty since he was her very first customer. Blackie side-eyes her and points out that it actually seemed like he was the one giving her the special treatment. Just then, the guy comes back. He calls out to her, and Juin, surprised, is like, "Huh? What now?" He tells her there's a problem with the sandwich. Her heart skips. But he smirks and says the issue is, it was too delicious. It was his first time eating such a fresh and yummy sandwich, and he's here again because he needs another one. Juin is all flustered now, reminding him that he literally said he had no money. He admits he still doesn't, but they can work out a deal, right? After all, she told him she needs to sell 10 sandwiches, so he offers to be all 10 of her customers, using a gold coin as payment. He explains that even if it's the same person buying over and over, the system counts sales individually, and since he's now making a second purchase, that makes him the second customer. She gets her stats, he gets good food. It's a win-win. Juin stares at him like, what? But, just like he said, the sale counter actually ticks up. Now she wants to try something. If he buys another sandwich right now, will he be counted as a third customer? Or is it just going to be seen as an add-on to his last order? He's down to test it, so they try it. He makes the purchase again, and they watch. Turns out, the system doesn't count it as a new customer. The sale counter doesn't move. That's when they both spot the red line. Thanks to the unintentional help of her first customer, they figure out something important. The red line she always thought was just some border, it's actually the entry line to her store. Basically, if someone enters the space, buys food, but never exits the red line and keeps buying, they'll still count as one customer. But if they exit and come back in, new customer. Thanks to that discovery, she manages to safely complete her first quest. The guy congratulates her. Juin smiles, thinking it's all thanks to him, but he humbly denies it. Turns out he was already short on food rations, so this whole food truck situation low-key saved him. He wishes her lots of sales and turns to walk away, but Juin suddenly calls out to him. He looks back. She dramatically asks for his name. He blinks, then just starts laughing. She tells him to shut up. All she did was ask for a name. He's like, yeah, but you asked it like you were confessing your undying love or something. She glares. Enough. But still, it seems like she's never gonna forget his name. Juhyuk. Juhyuk notices the food's all ready again. Juin says that of course, a Korean can't have a full meal without rice. Since she doesn't have much time left, she decides to serve him some instant rice. She gets everything ready for him, and Juhyuk's actually really impressed by how thoughtful the meal is. She even throws in some soup because, duh, what's rice without soup? Juhyuk looks touched. He asks how he should return the thermos to her. Jinu waves him off and says it's no biggie. He insists he'll bring it back next time they meet. After he finally leaves, Jinu looks around and realizes she's got a whole lot of cleaning to do. She doubts she can get it all done in 30 minutes. Blackie groans and asks why she was so generous to Juhyuk in the first place. Jinu explains that setting a good image for her business is super important. Plus, she's just genuinely happy that she found at least one person who loved her food and ate it with joy. And meanwhile, somewhere else, Juhyuk is finishing the meal and thinking to himself that this food right here feels like a dream come true. Now back in the real world, Blackie tells her that she still has a ton of stuff to learn, like the abilities of the awakened and the basics of dungeon life. But he's kind of like, how is this even possible? Dungeon news is literally everywhere on the internet, yet she still knows nothing about it. Juin admits she avoided it on purpose. Her parents were super busy before they passed away when she was really young. She was raised by her grandmother instead, the same woman who used to say things like, live a life where you fit in. Her grandmother's also the one who taught her how to cook. Turns out, she was kind of a low-key, amazing Korean chef. Blackie agrees that it might not be easy to untangle a story like that, so she doesn't need to stress. She can take things step by step. That actually makes Juin kind of teary. Now we see that Juin basically holy with how grateful she is to cook and eat when the ingredients are free. Blackie says she sure knows how to bounce back, but Juin's just like, food cures everything. She suddenly gets all hyped to make scrambled eggs and sandwiches for tomorrow's lunch. Meanwhile, Blackie's thinking she still has a lot to learn. But hey, even he can't get over how she used to freak out watching a cat eat with its paws when she first awakened. At the time, she genuinely thought he was a cat possessed by a ghost. No joke, she even got this random pop-up that asked if she wanted a tutorial. It felt like she had no choice, and then, out of nowhere, someone from behind chimed in. Of course, it's Blackie. He tells her she has to do it. She's an awakened now. Juin obviously was scared out of her mind when the cat straight up spoke. The cat says he's a spirit, and she's the one who gave him a name, so now he's here. But Juin is like, when the heck did she name him? Apparently, the dude mistook her truck name or whatever, but Juin insists, nah, that's her name. So now they're just going with Blackie. Back to the present, Jinu's glad she has this cute cat tagging along. But she seriously wonders why she can't get help from the spirits when she has literal mountains of dishes to wash. Anyway, first things first. Blackie's gonna teach her how to sell dungeon items. Turns out she can even sell the stuff Juhyuk gave her in the dungeon market. They wonder how much that gold coin will go for. She checks and boom, it's worth 1,000,000 won. She's like, there's no way he's sane if he gave her a literal 1,000,000 won for one sandwich. She starts doubting herself. Did she accidentally scam him? But Blackie reassures her that it's fine. The dungeon's a rough place, and maybe Juhyuk thought her sandwiches were actually worth that kind of cash in a place like that. Just then, a notification pops up saying all the items she listed are already sold. Jackpot. Once she sells the stuff, she can earn hunter market points and convert that into actual currency through her bank. So technically, selling food in dungeons might just be her new side hustle. She can actually make money from her dungeon currency and use it in her world. It gets directly deposited into her account, and it's a whopping amount. But Juin is still stuck in denial. She thinks there has to be some glitch in the system, or a straight-up mistake. Blackie, completely unbothered, tells her that if she doesn't believe it, she can just go check it herself. She starts wondering what this weird rock even is. The one she got from that guy, like, who was he really? She pulls up the info and gets smacked with the truth. That rock is not just a simple rock. It can be used to teleport to different places. Juin is now spiraling, wondering what kind of person would casually hand out something that valuable. She does a little deep dive and finds out, yep, that guy's not just anyone. He's literally a guild leader and the second-ranked hunter in the entire world. Now everything's clicking into place, and it's so much weirder. This was her first time entering a dungeon. She sold a sandwich for a ridiculous price. And not just to anyone, she gave it to rank 1. Plus, she straight up acted like that rock was no big deal. She's certain she must have sounded super arrogant. But the deal they made, it's actually starting to feel creepy. Like, why would a top-ranked hunter hand something that expensive to a total nobody like her? She starts stressing, what if he goes around telling people she scams hunters and takes their wealth in exchange for food? If that happens, she's doomed. She suddenly feels like she has to meet Juuk ASAP. Blackie's like, girl, what are you even talking about? Juun is already planning to go beg for forgiveness. She'll return the money, even get on her knees if she has to. She really needs to save her business, and this whole mess is stressing her out. Next day, morning hits, and she's a little freaked out because the ingredients from yesterday are just gone. But turns out, that's normal. The dungeon resets, and now she has new ingredient. Then she notices Blackie, who's a spirit, just chilling on top of the fridge. She's like, why is he acting like a regular house cat? But Blackie says he's just getting used to it. Now it's her turn to start getting used to all this dungeons, awakeners, the system, everything. Before heading back to her store, she learns more about dungeon skills and systems. That's when she notices something on her system interface keeps flickering off and on. Thinking about it now, it reminds her, didn't she win some kind of lottery for finishing that tutorial quest? She plans to finally use it. The reward box shows up. She asks Blackie what he thinks it'll be, but he's not holding out hope. He's like, it's probably going to be something useless. She opens the box, and it's a kitchen towel that never gets dirty. She's actually thrilled. To her, this is a huge win. Blackie, meanwhile, is side-eyeing the situation, like, is this really a good thing? She tries out the towel, wiping away leftover bacon grease, and yep, it stays squeaky clean. Not a single stain. She gets all hyped and starts wiping the entire kitchen. And somehow, after all that, the cloth still looks brand new. She's genuinely excited that she won't have to waste money buying new towels or spend time constantly washing them. Blackie just stares, thinking she really is the type who gets satisfied with the tiniest things. Before she knows it, she spent half an hour cleaning the kitchen. Now she's thinking about how to invest her 100 skill points. For now, she decides to delay leveling up Where the Wheel Takes, a teleportation skill that lets her go to places she's already visited. Since she's only been to one dungeon floor so far, the 4th, there's really no point upgrading it now. She figures she'll explore a bunch of areas first, then level it up once she has options. The only floor she's been to is still that 4th one, so upgrading the skill wouldn't help her yet and might actually pull her away from her business. Since her passive skill runs on auto mode, the one she needs to focus on right now is her license skill. Blackie thinks she made a smart move. She's prioritizing customer safety, and he's sure her business is going to do great. Finally, she manages to get tables and chairs for her sitting area. Now that she has that bulletproof truck, she can safely arrange the seating inside the red zone line. She gets a notification asking her to set business hours. She thinks 2 hours should be enough for this new zone. She's really hoping this next location brings in a crowd. With that, she activates Where the Wheel Takes. And just like that, her business is ready for day 2. She is here, standing in a very creepy cave, making her wonder what kind of place this even is. It's the 3rd floor of the dungeon, and weirdly, it's not listed among the explored areas. That makes her suspicious maybe her skill is guiding her into unexplored zones? Yesterday's floor was also an officially explored area, yet there weren't many people around. She's all bummed out now, like of all places her skill could have found, why this useless backwater of a dungeon? She sighs, thinking there are still sales she needs to make. She starts prepping the food, wondering how she always manages to forget about the prep time. These aren't simple sandwiches she can slap together in one go. Maybe it's kind of a relief though there aren't many customers right now. Next time, she decides, she'll make sure all the prep is done before she uses the skill to open for business. When the food is ready for seasoning her specialty, she gives it a little taste test. And yeah, it's amazing. Once she finishes marinating the frying pork, today's menu is officially complete. Suddenly, someone comments that it looks yummy. Turns out it's Blackie. She raises a brow, wondering when the heck he turned back into his cat form and got into the truck. He just shrugs like, wasn't it her who told him that his big OL cat form gets in her way when she's cooking? She throws him a sarcastic look she was going to offer him some food, but it seems like the guy only shows up in his small, cute cat form when he smells food. Still, she gives him a bite, telling him it'll taste good since she just made it. His ears twitch all happy, clearly vibing with the taste. Honestly, even last night, Blackie was thinking the same thing. She's super quick with her hands. She herself feels like she gets more motivated now that the ingredients come in such large batches. But now it's time to move on again. She's glad they're leaving, because being stuck in an unexplored area wasn't helping anyone. They arrive at a new spot, And unfortunately, she completely overlooked one small but crucial thing, a mattress. Now she's straight up freezing to death. The thing she overlooked? Her luck stat is literally 0. Like rock bottom, no chance of a good day 0, she's that unlucky. Blackie tries to hype her up, saying she should think of it as training. I mean, she'd be doing this kind of stuff at an Awakener's school anyway. She glares, like how can he say hell-level things like that with a straight face right now? She remembers that the Awakeners, training schools, are supposedly brutal, hellish, even. She never really needed to attend one since her class didn't require training. But now? Now she's thinking she's actually going to freeze to death in this place. So she checks if she can grab something helpful from the market. Blackie teases her, saying that with her current level, all she can do is get on her knees and beg a level 1 slime to spare her life. She finds a hot fan and grabs it. It's actually kind of helpful in keeping her warm. But even with that little win, she doesn't realize that the real tragedy hasn't even started yet. Even after opening up for a whole month, she doesn't get a single customer on any of the days. Like not one. She's basically spiraling at this point. Today's slump feels freakishly intense. She woke up at dawn to prep food again, even though she hasn't had any real customers. And the ingredients disappear after midnight. She still cooks every day, holding out hope for at least 2 or 3 potential customers. But here she is, with 0 sales to show for it. She asks Blackie what it felt like for him when he awakened. Because honestly, she's never felt any joy ever since she got her own awakening. The worst part is being forced into the dungeon without any choice in the matter. Still, lately she's been feeling a weird sense of purpose. They say awakened ones are only allowed to bring water, beef jerky, and potions into the dungeon, which means she can offer them something warm and real to eat. That thought alone made her want to give everything she's got. She's tried to do whatever she can to help others. But the dungeon hasn't exactly been kind to her. She's the only one who can cook here, and there's no one she can ask to help her, even if she wanted to. Blackie agrees it honestly makes him want to help her, seeing how hard she works. But there's really nothing he can do other than talk. Then comes a system notification. Tea time is up, and she can move on to another location. She sniffles a little but agrees. Even if she didn't get customers, it wasn't exactly lonely. After all, she had Blackie with her the whole time. The cat mumbles to himself that out there are definitely people who need her help, and honestly, she's already managed to kick one spiteful thing out of the dungeon world. Now they're transported to their new location. And boom, we see this guy from the very first chapter. At the start, he's staring at the truck, just frozen in place, looking at it like he's in total denial that what he's seeing is actually in a food truck. Jun is happy that they've finally made it to the second floor. The air here is super fresh, noticeably good, and she twirls around, taking it all in. It kinda hits her that she's really being a customer now. Like for real, and not in some weird fever dream. Is this real life? She legit starts rapping under her breath, swearing on her entire existence that she's not some illusion-casting monster, and that this truck is 100% real. If that hunter is hungry, well, he better get ready to eat, because this is happening. The hunter mumbles that he is pretty hungry, actually, and she tells him straight up that he better eat now before he gets wrecked out there. Plus, the payment can be done with hunter points anyway, so it's not like he's losing anything. Still, the guy is sitting there in straight up denial, while she's over here cooking like her life depends on it. She's worked really hard on this, especially the sauce and the meat, and she's just so glad that none of it went to waste. The highlight of this whole tonkatsu dish? Definitely the sauce. No debate. Now the hunter is low-key peeking at her from the side, totally baffled, like, how is this even a thing? She tells him it's almost ready, just a little more patience. Finally, all the prep is done, and she plates it up, serving it to him with a proud little grin. Seeing him enjoy his food makes her whole heart do a little dance. The hunter takes one bite, and boom, tears. Full-on misty eyes. She stares at him, kinda shook, and asks why he's crying. He says it's just been so long since he's eaten anything this good. Like, it's actually delicious. And that really hits Jun in the feels. She's actually about to cry too. Watching someone enjoy her food like this? Peak joy. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the dungeon zone, Juryuk is scrolling through his phone, looking at people going off online about Jun's food truck. The hype is real. But then, someone drops a runaway kid comment and asks him what the update is. Juryuk claps back, saying even he wouldn't dare go handle the 5th floor without a healer, so what even is that guy talking about? But the other guy keeps pushing, asking why Juryuk mentioned the 5th floor raid in an official event. Seojin side-eyes Juryuk, telling him he's acting sus. Juryuk tries to flip the convo and asks, what are the odds of running into that food truck inside the dungeon? Seojin just smirks, totally seeing through him, and calls out the deflection he's already seen the news about the truck. Duh. But Ju-hyuk drops a bomb. He has encountered that truck. He even whips out a sketch straight up guessing the look of the girl, the truck, everything, and says that it should be easy to find her with this, right? Seojin squints at the sketch and says it won't be hard to locate her at all. The real question is, what is Jo-hyuk planning to do once he finds her? Ju-hyuk just stares at the drawing, lost in thought. If his hunch is right, then she might actually be the most insane god-tier person among the awakened right now. Seojin watches him for a sec, then shrugs. Ju-hyuk finally adds one more thing. If Seojin does manage to find her, he wants their meeting to be kept totally under the radar. No clout chasing, no loud announcements. Just them, in secret. And not to let this leak anywhere. Yeah, Ju-hyuk makes that clear. He smiles to himself, thinking that, more than anything, he really just wants to return that thermos to her. On the other hand, Juin is lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and muttering how badly she wants to return that stone to Ju-hyuk. Keeping it is actually stressing her out. Like, seriously, this isn't just some random rock. This is an item the Taebaek Guild is willing to drop a mountain of money on. If she so much as accidentally lists this thing for auction, her personal safety and entire identity might just get exposed. She really doesn't want anyone finding out how her food truck even managed to enter the dungeon, or how she moves around inside. Blackie, sensing her mood, asks how she's feeling. She says she's fine, just a little feverish, nothing crazy. Still, her mind goes to the recent news about Ju-hyuk and the 5th floor raid. She sees his interview playing, and honestly, the guy looks like a whole celeb now. Her thoughts drift to that terrifying 5th floor, the one where everything was just flames, so red it hurt her eyes. It felt like the fire was waiting to swallow up everything the moment you stepped in. That overwhelming dread, she still remembers it. She had met Jurak back on the 4th floor, and even that was already brutal. Like, the 3rd stage is for mid-tier hunters, but she had stumbled into the 4th? As a beginner? Who had just cleared the tutorial quest? Yeah, that wasn't normal. She figures Ju-hyuk must have already caught on to her skills, so it'd probably be smarter for her to go meet him before he comes looking for her. Next day, we see her in the guild. Don't ask how, but somehow she managed to sneak into the guild, one of the greats. And wow, this place is huge. Like, am I in a palace? Huge. Now she's low-key panicking, wondering where Jo-hyuk's office even is. But before she can figure it out, this massive dude appears behind her. Like, seriously, he's built like a truck, and easily over 2 meters tall. He asks her why she's looking for the guild leader's office. She turns around and immediately regrets it. This guy? He's a walking mountain. His muscles are barely contained in his clothes. His presence is straight up terrifying. Seojin squints at her and says he's never seen anyone like her here before. Then he hits her with the bomb. Asks if her name is Juin. Instant panic. She freezes. Like, how the hell does he know her name? And he doesn't stop there. He asks if she's 21, says she looks way younger to him. Now that she's actually looking at him properly, she realizes she has seen this man before. Wasn't he in the Bull Terrain news report? Seojin casually asks again, how old is she? She's scared for her entire life right now. Voice trembling, she tells him yes, she's 21. Now, a personality like hers? The type that's never snuck around or lied in her entire life? Yeah, this whole thing is pushing her mental health to its absolute limit. After a whole exhausting day of anxiety, fever, and tension, the person she runs into is this terrifying man, reciting her personal information like he's reading her diary. And just when she thinks it can't get worse, he hits her with one more question: if she run a food truck? Yeah, no, that's it. Her mental stability is officially gone. Brain, short-circuited. She loses consciousness on the spot. Seojin, now absolutely shook, panics hard like he's full-on yelling at her, trying to wake her up. Now we see that Jo-hyuk bursts into laughter, clearly amused. It seems like Juin misunderstood, thinking he was trying to threaten her. Seojin quickly chimes in, insisting that he didn't do anything of the sort. He only approached her because she looked like the girl he had been searching for. Ju-hyuk nods along, unfazed, like yeah, he actually said all of that to her face. And with that face of his, the man looks stone cold 24/7. Even when he smiles, it's like a blink and you miss it glitch in his expression. He jokes that she might get scared again if he lingers, so since his job's done, he should probably bounce. As Seojin's leaving, he playfully claims that Ju-hyuk will never find someone as good as him. But Ju-hyuk just shrugs and throws shade right back. saying that Seojin doesn't exactly have the most likable face to begin with. Later, Joo-hyuk goes to check on Joo-in, who's now asleep. He's low-key glad she remembers his name. But just as he leans in, she jolts up, bumping her head right into his. She instantly starts apologizing, a mess of flustered energy. He watches her. Amused, it looks like she just woke up, but she's already making an impression. She's shocked to hear that she had passed out, and even more surprised that he was the one who found her. Joo-hyuk teases her a bit, saying he had heard she only runs a food truck, but apparently she delivers meals too. Joo-in laughs and tells him it's not that deep, she's just trying to get into the guild. He asks if she's okay now, and she jokes that she was kinda sick yesterday, but thanks to Seojin, she got the best coma nap of her life. Joo-hyuk casually mentions that Seojin has been his homie for 20 years. They go way back. He admits that yeah, even he gets spooked by Seojin's intense resting face sometimes. Joo-in laughs at that, saying it's kinda harsh to say that about a friend, but Joo-hyuk just grins. He's being honest. Then, he gets more serious. He says he knows she's here because of the stone, and Joo-in almost chokes on her food. It's obvious she's bad at lying. He offers her some water, his expression unreadable but sharp. He tells her straight up that he checked the dungeon entry list, and her name wasn't on it. Joo-in is stunned. She had no idea something like that even existed. Joo-hyuk explains that it's a policy meant to prevent criminal activity inside dungeons. And now, she's spiraling, realizing she technically entered without the government knowing. She lets out a nervous laugh, pretending it's not a big deal, but Joo-hyuk sees right through it. He then asks if she sold any more food after their first meeting. Joo-in says no, she kept exploring the uncharted areas instead. But she did finally land her first customer in a whole month on the second floor. She lights up talking about it, proudly sharing how she cooked a bomb-fried chicken and rice combo just for him. Joo-hyuk notices how her entire vibe changes when she talks about food. Her passion is legit. Anyway, she says she came to return the thermos. Joo-hyuk tells her that eating food in the dungeon is nothing short of a miracle. The flavor, the smell, it's insane. Nobody else could pull that off. Joo-in smiles, agreeing a little shyly. Then, he switches topics again, asking if the skill that lets her enter the dungeon is passive. But Joo-in just blinks, she has no idea what he's talking about. Joo-hyuk smirks that sly little smirk of his, and asks what she thinks the reason is behind him giving her that stone. Joo-in is totally lost. She genuinely has no clue. Finally, he drops the question. Has she been to the unexplored area on the 5th floor before coming here? Cut to flashback. Joo-in is talking to Blackie, her shadowy sidekick. She's freaking out about already meeting Joo-hyuk on the 4th floor, and how it might have revealed way too much. She tells Blackie she plans to lie but mix it with some truth. The fact that she can randomly reach the 4th floor is thanks to her skill, but it only works within the range of dungeons where the monsters are beatable. That way, no one will figure out she can reach beyond the 4th floor. Back to the present, Joo-hyuk can tell she's been to the 5th floor. He gets up, ready to say something, but then freezes. Joo-in is on the floor, on her knees, begging him to spare her just this once. She insists it was only that one time. Joo-in is visibly confused, like, what even is she talking about? Just then, a teammate walks in with some documents Joo-in has had requested. But the hunter spots Joo-in and immediately assumes the worst. She shouts at Joo-hyuk, asking if he's bullying someone again. He yells back, denying it, telling her to just drop the files on the desk and dip. Once the hunter leaves, Joo-hyuk turns to Joo-in and tells her to get up. Why is she on the floor? Joo-in awkwardly replies that she thought he was going to kill her for lying. Joo-hyuk sighs, saying he's not that scary of a person, and heads off to make tea since it looks like this conversation isn't ending anytime soon. Joo-in calls out that she'd like black coffee, thank you very much. That throws Joo-hyuk off. Wasn't this the same girl who was literally just begging for her life? Now, seated across from each other, he asks her to tell him more about the 5th floor. Joo-in explains that it's a place called the resting place of the corrupted Fire King spirit. Joo-hyuk studies her closely. She's still holding something back. He tells her that he's heard of such a place but has no clue where exactly it is. Finding it would require a whole lot of wandering around. Ji-eun debates with herself should she tell him. Eventually she says that the place they first met was in the right area. He raises an eyebrow and asks what about that location. She tells him it's part of the right zone in the Ariadne scalars. He follows up, asking if her skill also gives her some kind of dungeon map access. But Joo-in dodges that, saying she can't disclose that detail. Joo-hyuk thanks her anyway, says the info will help with the subjugation mission. Joo-in explains that she's only curious for personal reasons like, why do hunters even subjugate dungeons that are super dangerous? Ju-yuk answers that if they don't, a rift will open. He asks if she remembers the rift from 20 years ago. Nobody wants history to repeat itself. Ju-in nods. Her parents died in that rift. She gets it. Then Jo-yuk casually drops the real bomb. He slides over a set of documents. It's a contract. He asks her if she'd be interested in joining their guild. A guild membership contract. It's her first time seeing one. She asks Jo-yuk if he's being for real, and he nods like it's the most casual thing in the world. Ju-yuk tells her he's been thinking about it ever since the day they met, but he has only one request: that she provides delicious food to their guild members. If she has any extra conditions or special requests, she can write them down right now. This is all way too much. Her brain's glitching, like what even is happening right now? He suddenly throws in a wild question, asking if a 20 billion won bonus would be satisfying enough for her. She freezes. Shock hits her like a truck. 20 billion? What does he even mean by that? She stands there, mind short-circuiting, trying to wrap her head around this unimaginable amount of money. He casually calls her name, wondering if it's too little. He straight up says he can drop it down to 15 billion if that makes more sense. And that's when she just straight up crashes, emotionally, mentally, verbally. What the hell does he mean by that? Is he out here acting like it's game money or something? But he's so serious about it, like deadpan serious. Says it's the signing money, and she'll get even more money with each expedition they go on. It's all coming at her too fast. She snaps. Full on yells at him, tells him to stop talking about money. Like seriously, can he just not? Jo-yuk says to her that she seems confused, so it's probably best to talk about the dungeon first. He points out that the end of the dungeon hasn't been revealed yet, but once all the areas are secured, evidence always appears showing that the entire zone has been opened. There's no real way to tell the difference between day and night down there, since dungeon time runs opposite to real-world time. Ju-in notes how the more they talk about the dungeon, the stranger it all feels, even the structure. But Jo-yuk just shrugs, like, so what about it? She had thought the dungeon floors would be clearly divided, but apparently, the area right next to the 4th floor's Ariadne zone is already the 5th floor. Jo-yuk explains that's why they're able to explore new floors, even if certain areas haven't been fully secured yet. She starts thinking maybe that's exactly why there are still so many undiscovered sections on the 3rd floor. They got lucky discovering the path to the 4th floor from there. No wonder her business never took off on the 3rd floor. For reference, he explains that the red line on the map shows the shortest direct route to the next floor. That's the route he used to go solo to the 5th floor. Curious, she asks how long it takes to go from the 1st floor to the 4th. He tells her it takes about a week, so a round trip would be 2 weeks, and the whole tour would be 20 days. She thinks that sounds insanely time-consuming. Having to plan for an indefinite dungeon raid sounds terrifying. She says honestly, it's gonna be hard for her, but Jo-yuk reassures her that besides fighting the boss, they'll assign skilled hunters to protect her. She smiles, but that's not even the issue. The real problem is that she only has the strength of 5 stats, and she doesn't think she can even walk for 10 days straight like that. Jo-yuk seems like he's in denial, acting like if she just pushes through, she'll be fine. She wishes she could lie about it, but she can't. This is her reality after awakening. He chuckles and says her strength is lower than a non-awakened civilian. She knows she shouldn't laugh, but she does because seriously, who just casually says that? She tells him she wasn't like this before. It only happened after the awakening. Jo-yuk says it's fine, they can give her strength-boosting potions. She then asks how many people will be in the raid. He says around 30 to 50. She quickly realizes that serving 3 meals a day for 50 people is no joke, but the contract conditions are solid. She asks if she can borrow his pen for a moment. As she reads through all the terms, one thing catches her eye. Why is the renewal period just 1 year? She explains that her original plan was to expand her business and open a full franchise, but after this unwanted awakening, everything changed. Now she's stuck in a position where she can only cook inside the dungeon, so one day, she might not want to enter it at all. She's not a combat type awaken after all. Jo-yuk agrees that it makes total sense and says he's honestly looking forward to working with her. He tells her he'll prepare a fresh contract and call her again to sign it properly. But for now, he has to attend a Guild Alliance meeting. As she's about to leave, he hands her back the thermos she gave him and compliments how well it went with the sushi she made. She's glad he enjoyed it. Later, she's telling this entire situation to Blackie. She's got some seriously non-combat skills, and while there are a bunch of problematic civilians, only hunters are allowed inside the dungeon. If hunters cause chaos in her shop like flipping tables or trashing the place, she wouldn't be able to stop them. Blackie agrees with her concerns, but points out that it was her mistake to mention the location of the 5th floor. She defends herself, saying she just wanted to help. What if someone got lost while hunting? Blackie insists that if they get lost, that's on them. But Juin argues that it's not that simple. It's their duty to prevent dungeon cracks from happening, and helping each other is part of it. Still, being bound by a contract that forces her to go whenever the guild calls? That's not cool. Blackie warns her again. No matter what, she shouldn't mention the name of unexplored dungeons. Juin gets nervous. She asks him if he's that upset. She tells him she couldn't help it. It was the heat of the moment. Trying to soften things up, she tries to bribe him with food. He sighs. Does she really think she can bribe him with a meal? She promises she'll make him something really delicious this time. He's like, okay, fine. So she starts cooking for him. But Blackie tries to sneak some food while she's prepping, and she catches him in the act. He claims he just needed a little bite. She shoos him away and gets back to cooking. Today's highlight? Egg. Finally, the tuna rice porridge is ready. She hands it to him, saying she's sorry she didn't think it through, and the info he gave her might have been confidential. Blackie sighs, saying, oh, Juin, like a tired parent. Juin thinks that food seriously has magical powers. It can fix relationships, lighten up stress, and bring actual joy to their otherwise draining days. Still, she's worried this meal might not be enough for a full-on raid, and it'll probably digest too fast. Now her mind is spinning, thinking, what kind of dish would be practical without being too fancy? That simple joy of making food by hand in a place like the dungeon, it's what keeps her going. But even she knows .it's not going to be that easy. The next morning, Juin is making a whole dramatic fuss about how she's going to be late. Blackie asks her what the heck she was doing staying up so late then, and she tells him it was for something important before handing over house duty to him like she's going off to war. When the paper flips over to Blackie's view, he sees she's already planted 2 whole months worth of ingredients for food for the next 50 days. Like, that's dedication. On another level, she basically just prepped a whole buffet farm in advance. Meanwhile, people outside are buzzing. Joyuk and Yura, the iconic duo known as the top-tier bakery team of the whole world, are standing there like celebrities. Seojin shows up too, holding flowers, but the way he's gripping them makes it look like he's about to throw hands with a bouquet. When Joyuk explains that the mayor told him to hold them so he doesn't scare people off with his usual intimidating vibe, it all makes weirdly perfect sense. Finally, the taxi pulls up at the guild, and Juin steps out, totally confused by the massive crowd. She turns to Jo-hyuk, wondering if entrance ceremonies are always this extra. He tells her nah. It's just that the guild members are way too hyped to see her. Seojin gives her flowers, technically as a welcome, but the vibe is more like, you better cook us something god tier. All the hunters are practically begging her to feed them good stuff once they're down in the dungeon. Juin has to calm everyone down before it turns into a riot like, okay, chill. She gets it, they're all super serious when it comes to food. When the formal stuff finally wraps, someone walks up to Juin. It's Yura. She drops the info that she's been assigned to handle Juin's security. Joyuk's not even fazed. But when Yura starts yapping mid-announcement, Joyuk gives her a look before turning to Juin, ready to do introductions. He announces to everyone that Juin will be the one in charge of cooking their meals in the dungeon now, and asks if she's got anything to say. Juin steps up and says she's got materials prepared. Oh, and she baked cookies too, so yeah, she hopes they'll munch on those while she talks. She whips out a whole rough plan of the meal schedule for the next 30 days, built for 80 people. She explains rice and kimchi are going to be the default side dishes. Yeah, there might be some repetition, but she promises to keep it minimal. The hunters are already acting like she just told them they're winning the lottery. Even raw rice has them emotional at this point. Then she drops a twist. She's got a bonus plan. Anyone who works hard in the high-intensity zones gets to pick a dish of their choice. Suddenly, the whole squad is fired up. They're literally out here strategizing how to do the most monster damage just for a chance to eat Juin's winner's meal. Juin's wondering if she should keep going, but Yura tells everyone to zip it since Juin's not even done yet. Now it's dessert time. And yes, they're all getting dessert too. Juin confirms they'll be getting cake, ice cream, fruits, or even chocolate. But she's got some concerns like who's going to wash all these dishes. The moment she mentions it, people are falling over themselves to volunteer. Problem solved. She adds that it'll be self-service, but she's worried some people might end up with smaller portions. That gets another team fired up. Thrub says they'll form a food distribution squad to keep things fair. Then there's the table and chair issue. Some are like, we don't even need them. We'll eat on the floor. Juin is genuinely touched by their cooperation and reassures them she'll give her best to serve food that's both delicious and nutritious. The energy levels shoot through the roof. It's like a whole cult of Juin just formed right then and there. Jo-yuk watches all of it go down and thinks this is honestly great. It's going to keep the hunters motivated, and he's beyond glad he recruited her. Time flies after that. The days blur by. Then, one day, while Juin is prepping for the 5th floor subjugation, something new starts brewing. Yura is clearly crushing hard on Blackie. She wants to know his name. Blackie, with zero effort, is like it's Blackie in his head. Yura finds it so wild that not only can this cat talk, but he's also smart. Jian, for one, is totally unfazed, like, yeah, a talking cat in a world full of dungeons? Not even surprised. Yura, though, is acting like she just discovered a magical unicorn. She finds Blackie insanely adorable, but Blackie is low-key fuming. He's not a pet, okay? Yet here's Yura reaching out to pet him, and to be honest, he's enjoying the attention way more than he wants to admit. It's giving, secretly loving it. Expected behavior from someone who owns 3 pets. Then Yura asks Juin if she wants to say something, but Juin brushes it off. Though eventually, she brings up the idea of Yura working part-time at her shop. Yura gets all sad because she's like, I suck at cooking, but Juin's like, nah, you won't need to cook. They just need someone to deal with the annoying customers and occasional monsters. That's something Yura can totally handle, so she's down for it. Jion turns to Blackie, basically asking him to let Yura be part of the squad. Blackie would rather have Juin to himself, but whatever. He stretches out a paw and makes it official. Yura's now a food truck employee. Juin feels way less stressed now. Having Yura by her side means she can go pretty much anywhere, and now that her crew's assembled and they've got the short ticket cleared, it's time for the real business to begin. Out of nowhere, Juin hears her name being shouted. It's Yura. She's yelling for Juin to back off because it's dangerous. And sure enough, a massive monster is about to strike. Just before the monster can land its attack, Yura swoops in and saves Juin without missing a beat. She tells her, point blank, never to let her guard down in a dungeon. Juin, still trying to figure out what just happened, is totally confused why the heck is a boss-level beast showing up on the 1st floor. Yura casually explains that dungeon variables are wild like that. Anything can spawn in at any level. Then she tells Juin to hang on tight and give the monster a solid punch. They both tag-team the beast with a clean combo punch and a high-key brutal kick, and boom, it's taken care of in seconds. Juin's standing there, seriously impressed, because Yura just went full-action hero mode. For real. It looks like this girl's side gig is being the next Bruce Lee. Yura even apologizes for handling it so rough, and double-checks if Juin's okay. She throws in a little flex, saying Juin just witnessed her true skills, so no need to stress about monsters or annoying customers ever again. Juin's all ready to activate the bulletproof food truck using her 3rd wheel skill, but it doesn't trigger. There's some weird buffering issue like, okay, great timing. Yura asks if something's wrong, but Juin shrugs it off like it's whatever. She tries again, and this time the truck actually spawns. Some hunters nearby are buzzing, saying they think they just saw a food truck appear out of thin air. Others think it sounds ridiculous, until they see it with their own eyes. Now they're straight up stunned. Today's menu is limited to just 50 people, so Juin announces that the first ones to show up can get a plate. The hunters are still chatting way too much though, until Yura yells at them to shut it like, who even talks in the kitchen, seriously? That finally gets them to zip it. Juin gets back to the food. She adds fancy rice into the pan, and the aroma hits instantly. Even Yura's tempted to buy one, but then remembers she's supposed to be on duty. Juin finishes it off with a drizzle of fresh sesame oil, and yeah, that's the final boss move for kimchi fried rice. No skipping that. She tells the first 15 people to come grab their meals and also toss their cups in the trash bin by the driver's seat. The hunters take their first bites and get emotional real fast. They're literally tearing up from how good the food tastes. Juin feels ridiculously happy watching them eat, like this warm, cozy glow spreading in her chest. Once everyone's full and chilling in the truck, Yura's busy stuffing her face with free kimchi fried rice, living her best life. Juin asks her if every subjugation mission is going to be like this. Yura says kinda sorta, and Juin asks her to break down more details about active skills. Now at the guild's training center, Yura starts the rundown. There are 3 types of active skills: instant cast, combo, and conditional. Juin wants to know what an instant cast skill looks like, and Yura goes straight for the demo. She kicks a punching bag so hard that it tears clean apart. Juin's stunned all over again. Yura explains that instant cast skills don't need any pre-requirements, just mana. You use it, boom, it works. Then she moves on to combo skills. Normally there's a delay between using one skill and the next, but combo skills erase that delay, so you can chain attacks like a pro. She gives a quick display kick, then a back kick in smooth sequence. Juin watches, eyes wide, as Yura says most hunters at the academy train on combo skills first, since they're super practical. Finally, Yura covers conditional skills. As the name says, they only activate under certain conditions. She performs another stunt, this time a crazy jump, that triggers a powerful move mid-air. Juin's completely wowed. Yura makes it clear, knowing how to actually use your skills the right way is a big deal. Studying each skill thoroughly is what separates rookies from real hunters. Juin takes notes like a straight-A student, writing everything down to lock it in. She lets out a sigh at the end, realizing today is the day. And something about it has her feeling all kinds of rebellious already. We see that they are now inside the dungeon, walking steadily while the hunters behind them handle the monsters with smooth, efficient strikes. Yura glances at Jiun and asks if she's tired, but Jiun shakes her head, saying that thanks to the buff, she actually feels light on her feet. They're relieved, it looks like. At this pace, they'll be able to reach the first campsite by sunrise. The mood is calm, almost too calm, until someone in the group casually brings up the topic of food again. They start saying they want 3 meals a day, like they're out on some luxury retreat. Jo-yuk immediately shuts it down. He tells them straight up that if they want 3 full meals a day, they're going to move slower. Way slower. But, he adds, if they successfully conquer the 5th floor dungeon, then sure, they can feast on 3 full meals a day on the way back. The hunters? Yeah, they're not having it. Instantly, chaos. Everyone starts making a whole fuss like, no way, no way! Like they were promised a 5-star buffet in the middle of a death zone. Jo-hyuk states that for this raid, meals will be substituted with jerky and potions, a practical but unappealing solution meant to sustain rather than satisfy. Juin, however, holds a different perspective, believing that 3 meals a day will suffice for their return. After breakfast, she reasons, the long stretch until dinner would leave everyone hungry and fatigued. This thought leads her to consider more convenient food options that can be consumed while traveling, simple yet filling choices such as sandwiches, hamburgers, or rice dishes. Given her ability to store items in her inventory, she recognizes that carrying such meals would not be difficult, and it would significantly improve morale. At that moment, the group arrives at the first campsite. An announcement is made that they will have personal time until dinner, allowing everyone a brief moment of rest after the journey. Juin takes in the scenery, quietly marveling at its beauty. The surroundings are serene, bathed in the soft light of morning, offering a rare sense of peace despite the dangers that lie ahead. As the morning progresses, she is seen cleaning her truck with diligence. Observing the others, she notices that every member is equally focused on their assigned tasks, each contributing in their own way to the team's preparedness. This realization strengthens her resolve. She understands that she too must fulfill her role properly. Ensuring that no one goes hungry becomes her responsibility, and she accepts it with quiet determination. Jo-yuk approaches her during this time, noting her energy and dedication. His purpose, however, is not merely observational. He has brought something for her. Due to the armor's effect, her burn resistance has increased by 50%, and an additional effect known as a comfortable state has been applied. The uniform he presents is specially designed crafted from waterproof and non-staining material, tailored specifically for her needs in the field. It is both practical and considerate, reflecting an awareness of her role as someone who will be constantly working with food and heat. He also offers his congratulations once more on her becoming a member of the Clear Sky Guild, acknowledging her place within the team. There is an expectation now, one that ties directly to her skills. He expresses anticipation for the first proper meal within the dungeon, subtly placing his trust in her abilities. Juin accepts this responsibility without hesitation, assuring him through her actions that he can rely on her. Though confident, she cannot ignore the sheer scale of what lies ahead. Preparing food for such a large group feels overwhelming, especially given the conditions they are operating under. Even so, she chooses not to step back. Today's menu is kimchi stew, a hearty, warming dish that can restore both strength and spirit. As she reflects on her preparations, she feels a sense of relief and gratitude for having asked Blackie to remodel the vehicle into a large-scale cooking truck. She reflects that asking for the remodel had been the right decision. For a moment, she considers that such a truck might not be the most suitable vehicle inside a dungeon, yet now, As the cooking base stands fully prepared, it proves its worth. The setup is complete, and she focuses on the task at hand. The kimchi has fermented to perfection, rich in color and flavor, making it ideal for stew. As the cooking begins, the aroma gradually fills the campsite. Some of the hunters nearby begin to murmur among themselves, surprised by the comforting, familiar sound of food being prepared within a dungeon. It feels almost unreal. A few of them remark that the chopping sounds alone already surpass their own skills, noting that she handles the ingredients with precision and ease. Jun continues cooking with steady focus, carefully balancing the flavors of the kimchi stew. Once the main dish is underway, she decides it is time to prepare side dishes. Moving efficiently, she begins assembling them one by one, each dish adding another layer to the growing feast. Before long, an irresistible fragrance spreads through the area, drawing even more attention. Finally, the cooking is complete. Freshly cooked rice is prepared alongside the stew, its warmth and simplicity complementing the rich flavors perfectly. Some hunters, unable to resist the enticing smell any longer, approach eagerly. They admit that the aroma alone compelled them to come running and ask whether they can begin serving. She gives her approval without hesitation, allowing them to start. Soon, the hunters gather around and begin eating. However, as they serve themselves, a bit of bickering breaks out over portions, each worried about getting less than the others. Watching this, she briefly wonders if she has prepared too little food for everyone. Joyuk approaches her at that moment, expressing his gratitude for her hard work. He asks whether she has eaten yet, and she admits that she has not. Before the moment lingers, someone calls out to both of them, urging them to come and eat as well. As she observes the group more closely, she notices that the guild members seem somewhat uncomfortable with one another. She had initially expected a more cooperative and harmonious atmosphere, especially among them. Joyuk explains that after fighting together in the dungeon, there is no longer a need for formalities. The guild members are free-spirited by nature, and their interactions reflect that informality. Meanwhile, the reactions to the food become increasingly enthusiastic. Voices rise with praise, calling it incredibly delicious, far better than most restaurant meals. Many expressed disbelief that someone so young could cook with such skill and depth of flavor. Hearing these comments fills her with happiness, the satisfaction of her efforts clearly reflected in their enjoyment. At last, Joyuk takes his first bite. She watches closely, silently, waiting for his reaction. As he tastes the food, he comes to understand why the guild members are eating so eagerly. The flavor is so rich and satisfying that it inspires a desire to keep eating without stopping. She considers this the highest form of compliment for someone who has cooked. He adds that, in truth, he already had an idea from the sandwiches she made earlier. That reminder brings back the memory of an unusually expensive purchase, prompting her to reflect on who would spend such an amount on a simple sandwich. He explains that after retrieving the gate stones, he had bought 10 sandwiches for 9 gold coins, though he would not have hesitated to pay even more. She remarks on how wealthy he must be, but he dismisses that assumption, saying it is not about wealth. Any hunter present would have been willing to do the same. She wonders if he is simply trying to please her with his words, but he clarifies that he is speaking sincerely. In his view, she is truly one of a kind. For years, hunters have been unable to use their full strength within dungeons due to the lack of proper food. Ever since dungeons first appeared 2 decades ago, this limitation has persisted. Yet now, she is accomplishing something that no one else has managed in all that time. To him, her presence is nothing short of extraordinary, a rare and astonishing miracle. Hearing this leaves her overwhelmed. Her face flushes deeply, and she struggles to respond. With no other words coming to mind, she simply offers her thanks, though inwardly she feels as if she might collapse from embarrassment under the weight of such praise. She wonders whether her coming here can truly be called a miracle. She does not go that far in her thoughts, yet Joyuk casually states that he will focus on eating his meal for now. He is told to eat before it gets cold, and to pace himself. As he reflects on those words, it begins to feel like an even greater miracle that so many people are enjoying the food at this very moment. Around the truck, a faint but noticeable protective shield shimmers within a marked red line. Its purpose is clear to prevent monsters from attacking. The hunters observing it cannot help but admire the skill behind such a barrier. Jun explains that the ability is limited in its use, functioning only for business-related purposes, such as creating a temporary resting spot while hunting monsters, and nothing beyond that. Yura begins to think strategically, wondering if the truck could somehow be placed inside a boss's room and used to launch an attack from within. The idea seems appealing to her. Meanwhile, Joyuk decides that he and Jin will handle the monsters roaming nearby first. Jin questions why he has to be involved, but before the discussion goes further, their attention shifts to the appearance of slime monsters. Joyuk asks if Jin is ready, and upon receiving confirmation, Jin activates his skill and launches an attack. Elsewhere, some of the hunters are peacefully enjoying their ice cream, momentarily free from tension. However, the calm is abruptly broken when they hear a strange and unsettling noise. Confusion spreads among them as they try to identify its source. It is not long before a warning system activates, indicating that a group is causing chaos inside the store by using skills. A system message follows, stating that the bulletproof truck's special effect, Force Explosion, has been activated. A target has been identified, and the skill proceeds automatically. Juin is unable to comprehend what is happening, and the confusion deepens when both Joyuk and Jin suddenly come under attack from the truck itself. Yura and Juin are both stunned, unable to process the situation, while the surrounding hunters are equally bewildered. Juin immediately insists that it was not her doing, that she did not activate any such ability. At that very moment, Blackie appears and calmly declares that he is responsible for what has happened. Juin turns to him in disbelief, questioning whether he truly caused this. Blackie confirms it without hesitation, explaining that food trucks fall under his domain. As a spirit, he cannot tolerate other forms of mana being used within his territory. He elaborates that although she may share the same side as his master, she is not aligned with him. The area they are in is sustained by a spirit's power within the dungeon, and any interference from outside mana threatens to destabilize it. Juin struggles to accept this explanation and questions why he remained silent while she was using her skill, instead of warning her beforehand. He explains that his master had only insisted on changing the interior of the truck. Altering the original settings of an entire area requires an immense amount of energy, far beyond what could be casually expended. He recalls waking up in shock when he emerged, realizing the extent of what had been done. The master, after all, is not a hunter, but merely a food truck owner. Since he is still in the process of recovering his strength, he decides that he will return to sleep. Juin approaches Joyuk and apologizes, admitting that Blackie seems to be hiding many things from her. Joyuk observes the situation carefully and concludes that the truck resembles a magician's magic circle. Just as an already completed magic circle is disrupted when foreign mana interferes with it, the same principle appears to apply here. It seems that the entire truck itself is a magic circle constructed by that spirit. He cannot help but note how impressive such a spirit must be. She questions his reasoning, prompting him to explain further. He compares the situation to dealing with a troublesome customer, where entry is restricted for a day as a form of control. This realization causes her to shout in frustration. Meanwhile, Yura finds amusement in the situation and teases the guildmaster, remarking that both of them qualify as troublesome customers and should go outside to stand guard themselves. Jin reacts sharply, shouting at Yura that if he steps inside, she will be the first one he deals with. Juin, caught in the middle, continues apologizing to both of them, clearly overwhelmed by the circumstances. As time passes, everyone settles into their respective camps. The atmosphere quiets down, and the hunters begin their night watch. Juin is later seen sitting alone when someone approaches her and asks if she is still awake. She responds that perhaps it is because of how bright everything is that she cannot fall asleep. One of the hunters recalls that she mentioned this being her first monster hunt. She confirms it and expresses her fascination with how the dungeon remains brightly lit despite it being night outside. The hunter gently suggests that she should go into her tent and rest, offering to wake her at 5 in the morning. However, she requests to be woken up at 1 instead. He finds that too early, but she explains that she needs to receive the next batch of ingredients after midnight, making it extremely important. Understanding the situation, the hunter agrees to arrange things accordingly. She thanks him and asks if he knows which tent is hers. He points it out, and she confirms it. She remarks that although the tent appears small from the outside, it is actually very spacious within. It is an enchanted space personally ordered by Joyuk from an alchemy workshop. Upon entering, she is amazed, wondering if this is truly what alchemy feels like. The interior is astonishing, complete even with a bathroom. After taking a shower, she lies down on her bed and begins planning her meals. For breakfast, she intends to prepare grilled mackerel, and for lunch, she plans to make rice bowls. However, her thoughts are suddenly interrupted when she cries out in pain, confused about why something hurts. By around 4 in the morning, she steps outside and asks the hunters if they have heard anything from Ju-yuk. They inform her that he had instructed them to wake her at 4 instead. This revelation frustrates her, as she remarks that he did not seem like such a scary person at first. Another hunter reassures her, saying that if there is anything they can assist with, she only needs to ask. She then inquires whether any of them know how to peel potatoes. To her surprise, they handle the task skillfully, explaining that they often help with cooking at home and that this is an easy task for them. She thanks them for their help, but the hunter insists that he should be the one thanking her instead. He mentions how slowly time passes during night watch, making this a welcome activity. She also notices one individual whose knife skills are particularly impressive, and she feels a sense of determination not to be outdone. For today's moving lunch menu, she decides on tuna mayo rice balls. She begins the preparation process, focusing intensely. To prevent the rice from becoming mushy, she carefully squeezes out all excess oil. She continues working through each step with precision, fully immersed in the task. Eventually, the lunch is ready. She offers one of the rice balls to the hunter who had peeled the potatoes, asking him to taste it. After eating, he mentions that he saw grilled mackerel listed on the breakfast menu and asks if she needs help preparing it. She suddenly realizes that she had nearly forgotten about it and decides to check on it immediately. She thinks it would have been ideal if it had already been prepared, and upon opening the box, she is surprised to find that everything is indeed prepped. She examines it closely, noting the neatly prepared ingredients, savory rice components, and long-style mackerel that has already been cleaned, seasoned, and made convenient to cook. The irony is not lost on her. Compared to being given raw chunks of meat and rice before, this level of preparation feels completely different. As she continues preparing the fish, she realizes that she has not received pre-prepared ingredients like this from Blackie before. This leads her to wonder what criteria determines when such preparation is provided. The scene shifts to the soft sound of someone singing, a gentle melody carrying through the air, just as Yura suddenly rises from her place. The tune immediately feels familiar, and she questions who could have possibly set the alarm to match the one used during the training camp. One of the girls nearby admits, with a hint of nervousness, that she was the one responsible, explaining that she feared Yura would not wake up otherwise. Still adjusting to the morning, Yura turns her attention to Sierra and asks her to check what is being served for breakfast that day. Sierra complies without hesitation, and for a brief moment, the menu reveals itself in vivid detail. Neatly prepared shredded potatoes, perfectly fried eggs, grilled mackerel, mushrooms, clams, and a warm serving of miso soup. The combination is both hearty and comforting, promising a satisfying start to the day. The scene then transitions to Juin, who is immersed in her work while softly singing to herself. Her voice carries a natural charm, drawing the attention of one of the hunters nearby, who remarks on how well she sings. Juin brushes off the comment modestly, asking him not to tease her, and seamlessly returns her focus to cooking. As expected, her skill shines through effortlessly. The harmony between the miso and clam broth comes together flawlessly, releasing a rich and inviting aroma. She continues by carefully seasoning the dishes and preparing the eggs with precision. The fragrance quickly fills the space, prompting someone to comment on how incredible everything smells. It is the same hunter whom Juin had previously instructed to wake her at 1 o'clock. Realizing the time, she reacts sharply, reminding him that she had specifically asked to be woken at exactly 1. In response, he calmly points out that while dedication to a task is admirable, neglecting rest would only hinder her performance. From his perspective, it is more practical to focus on serving now, as their team is responsible for that duty today. Juin acknowledges this but insists on taking 2 servings of rice for herself before anything else, maintaining her composed yet determined demeanor. The scene then shifts again, this time to Jin and Ju-yuk. Jin appears restless and uneasy as he wonders aloud how long it will take for the food truck to return. Ju-yuk admits that he has no clear idea, suggesting that it will likely be quite a while. This uncertainty leaves Jin visibly disappointed, as he reflects on the fact that the food truck does not provide deliveries. Ju-yuk responds with a touch of humor, pointing out the absurdity of expecting delivery services inside a dungeon. At that moment, Juin approaches them and asks whether they slept well. Jin responds with a dramatic tone, explaining that he had been kicked out and therefore could not sleep properly, blaming his discomfort on emotional distress. However, Juin immediately notices the contradiction, pointing out that the visible pillow marks on his face suggest otherwise. Jo-yuk takes the opportunity to tease Jin further, remarking on his poor sleeping habits, which prompts Jin to protest loudly, questioning why he is always the target of such remarks. Observing their exchange, Juin comments on how lively the two of them seem this morning, their energy contrasting with the earlier calm atmosphere. As the moment settles, Jo-yuk turns his attention to the food and begins eating the fish. He notes with clear satisfaction that the mackerel is exceptionally well prepared, lacking any of the unpleasant fishy odor that is often associated with it, further highlighting Juin's remarkable cooking skills. Juin calmly explains that she used green tea bags to eliminate the fishy smell from the mackerel, revealing yet another layer of her thoughtful cooking technique. She then turns her attention to Jin and asks how it tastes. In response, he simply gives a thumbs up, clearly satisfied. Encouraged by the relaxed atmosphere, she tells him that he can speak casually with her, adding that she is no longer intimidated by him. Up until now, he had always responded in short, quiet remarks, maintaining a certain distance. Jo-yuk then notices that Juin has not started eating and questions her about it. She admits that she usually skips breakfast, a habit that immediately draws a reaction from Jin. He insists that she should be eating 3 proper meals a day, bluntly pointing out that her lack of muscle might be the result of such habits. His comment prompts Juin to react with mild annoyance, remarking that the moment she gave him permission to speak casually, he began nagging her. Jin quickly defends himself, claiming that he is not nagging at all. Their exchange is interrupted when another hunter approaches, curiously asking what they have been discussing so intently. At the same time, Neonuni appears and gently suggests that Juin should go and eat her meal. Soon after, Juin is seated with a plate of food in front of her. However, she looks at it with hesitation, insisting that the portion is far too large for her. Nayun firmly counters that skipping meals like this will only harm her in the long run, even giving her a light pat on the back to encourage her. Just then, Choi arrives and asks if she is being bullied again. Juin immediately appeals to him for help, pointing at the overwhelming amount of food and questioning whether anyone could reasonably eat that much. Choi, however, shows no sympathy and instead remarks that consuming such a portion is simply what it means to eat like a proper human being, urging her to finish it. Reluctantly, Juin begins eating, convincing herself that she should fuel up, especially since they will be undertaking a night hike later. The group plans to move forward after today, aiming to reach the 2nd floor. However, doing so requires crossing an enormous mountain range that stretches across 2 dungeons. By the end of the day, they are expected to reach the entrance leading to the 2nd floor, known as the Valley of Despair. This area is divided into 3 distinct zones, one of which is notably where they once sold pork cutlet rice bowls. After passing through all 3 zones of the Valley of Despair, they will approach the Neoplanes, a vast region infamous for monsters that emerge from all directions. The Neoplanes is recognized as the largest dungeon area on the 2nd floor, with the Neo River cutting through it. As Juin listens to all these plans being discussed, she finds herself overwhelmed by the constant strategizing. Wanting to shift the mood, she turns to Jo-yuk and asks if she might be allowed to try driving the truck once they reach the plains. He reacts with confusion, clearly not expecting such a request. However, Jin immediately supports the idea, suggesting that it could actually be useful. He proposes that they might even be able to use the truck as a weapon, running over monsters to defeat them. This suggestion sparks a moment of uncertainty as they begin to wonder whether the truck would destroy the monsters or be destroyed itself in the process. Despite her earlier fear of the dungeon environment, Juin has gradually adapted to it. As it is often said, humans are remarkably adaptable creatures, and her ability to adjust, especially through her experiences operating the food truck, has become surprisingly impressive. With growing confidence, she proposes testing the idea by attempting to hit a monster with the truck. She proceeds to activate the truck's driving mode, which is enhanced with a large vehicle license at level 2. The system appears specifically designed to push objects aside with ease. Determined to test its capabilities, she drives forward and strikes a monster directly. The impact sends the creature flying before it collapses, defeated. Jin watches in astonishment, unable to believe that the attack actually worked. The monster they had just faced was not a weak one. It would normally require the effort of 2 or 3 skilled wizards to defeat. Yet Juin managed to take it down with the truck alone. Instead of reacting with fear or shock, Juin expresses pure excitement, remarking that the experience is incredibly fun. Her reaction leaves the others staring at her in confusion, struggling to reconcile her enthusiasm with the situation. At that moment, a notification appears before her, informing her that she has defeated a monster and earned a reward of 200 points. This realization leads her to another thought. Defeating monsters allows for leveling up. This means that her skills, such as where the wheels go, or add the owner's will, can also improve over time. As she reflects on the many unexplored dungeons still ahead, she begins to see new potential in her growth. A further notification appears, indicating that her experience has increased by 5%, bringing her level progress to 185%. Seeing this unexpected jump, she reacts loudly in disbelief, overwhelmed by the sudden surge in progress. They ask her what happened, and she explains that she has leveled up. Yura steps forward and congratulates her warmly, while Jin reacts with surprise, remarking that she is doing well yet again, and offering his congratulations too. At this stage, they believe that only a few more monsters need to be taken down, but this realization causes concern to stir within her. She reflects on the situation, noting that she has only defeated a single monster, and already her experience has increased by 5%. If she were to defeat just 3 more at this rate, she might reach level 2. With that, her skill would activate, allowing her to designate a specific location. However, instead of feeling relieved, she becomes anxious. She realizes that leveling up now would create a serious problem. The dungeon floor is flat, and the group had been relying on the idea that if she could drive the truck, their marching speed would increase significantly. But if she levels up too soon, that plan could fall apart. With a sense of guilt, she apologizes to the group. Jin immediately reassures her, telling her that it is understandable, and that she has her own situation to consider. Since they were the ones who asked her to participate in the hunt in the first place, he believes it is only right that they accommodate her circumstances. Still, the issue remains unresolved, and he begins to wonder if there is any possible solution. At that moment, Jo-hyuk speaks up, stating that there is only one way. The others react immediately, protesting and suggesting that what he is about to propose is too extreme. Despite their hesitation, he insists that it is the only viable option. He reveals the existence of a curse potion, an illegal substance often used for criminal purposes. This potion is designed to hinder leveling up and growth. Even if she completes quests or defeats monsters, her level would not increase after consuming it. The effect can last anywhere from a week to as long as 2 months. Rather than being alarmed, she finds the idea surprisingly appealing. To her, it sounds incredibly useful under the current circumstances. She expresses her willingness to use it and asks Jo-hyuk if he can obtain one for her. He admits that while it is illegal, it is not entirely impossible to get. Still, he questions whether she is truly okay with going through with it. She reassures him of her decision, explaining that once they reach the 2nd floor of the dungeon, she will drink the potion and then take on the role of driving them. Even so, the others urge her to listen carefully before making a final decision. A thought crosses her mind, and she begins to worry about whether she might be punished simply for asking for such a potion. They quickly clarify that this is not the issue. Instead, they warn her about the potion itself. The curse potion takes effect with just a single drop, and its taste is beyond unbearable. It is described as something far worse than ordinary potions, like consuming a mixture made from the worst kinds of trash in the world. The sheer disgust it induces is so intense that it could make a person lose their will to live. A question drifts through the group about what might be served for lunch today, and someone confidently assumes it must be codfish. The thought of heading to the snack bar for it brings a sense of anticipation, as cod is considered especially delicious. In contrast, another girl reflects on how lunchtime has always been a lonely experience for Juin. To fill that emptiness, Juin has devoted herself to practicing cooking at home, preparing various dishes, even though she cannot possibly eat all of them by herself. The scene returns to the present, where Juk asks Juin if she has slept well. They have now arrived on the 2nd floor, and she expresses her gratitude, saying that she was able to come comfortably thanks to him. He brushes it off as nothing significant. Juin then mentions that she will go and prepare dinner. At that moment, Jane approaches and questions Joak, wondering if he is unwell since his face appears unusually flushed. Without offering much explanation, he quickly rushes away, claiming that the 2nd floor feels somewhat hot. Jane remains puzzled, assuming that he must have overexerted himself due to his weak stamina. Meanwhile, Tara reflects that she needs to work out after this subjugation mission. She cannot help but feel embarrassed as she recalls having fallen asleep, sprawled across Sam's chest, and she anxiously wonders if she might have drooled. Soon after, Yura arrives and hesitantly asks if she may come in. Juin permits her to enter. Yura apologizes, explaining that she had been changing and offers to return later, but Juin reassures her that it is fine since she is almost finished. She then asks Yura what brought her there. The focus briefly shifts to Sarah, who is working in the kitchen while thinking that Yura's concern might be excessive. Earlier, Yura had been deeply worried about Juin getting hurt. repeatedly checking on her condition and making sure she would not catch a cold. She had also been concerned about whether Juin was experiencing any muscle aches. However, back in the present, Juin insists that she is completely fine, explaining that her knee was only bruised. She recognizes that Yura and the others have gone through a great deal because of her. Now, surrounded by the comforting aroma of rich butter, she feels a sense of warmth and healing. Juin returns to preparing the meal, moving with quiet focus as she works through each step. As she cooks, a thought crosses her mind, and she wonders whether Blackie might want a bite of bread. She glances around, half expecting him to appear as he usually does, but he does not show himself. This absence makes her realize that he has not been around much lately. She recalls how cute it used to be whenever he emerged during her cooking, sneaking small bites of the ingredients. The memory lingers warmly, and she reassures herself that he will likely come out eventually. With that thought, she returns her full attention to cooking. Before long, someone informs her that the grill is ready. She responds that she will be out soon. Today's menu consists of barbecue, cream soup, and garlic bread. It is her first time having a barbecue gathering with everyone, and she finds that the food tastes even better when it is grilled and shared together. The atmosphere feels lively and comforting. Someone remarks that she must be tired after following them around all day, but she denies it, saying that she had fun. She reflects on something she has realized, that people should travel by car. The others point out that she was just saying how fun it was, but she clarifies that she meant something beyond just enjoyment. Nearby, Yu-yuk takes a bite, savoring how the creamy soup wraps around the savory, crispy garlic bread, forming what feels like the perfect combination. At that moment, Yura speaks up, revealing that she had seen Juin earlier while she was changing. She explains that Juin's body was covered in bruises. Yura admits that she had convinced herself Juin was fine, partly because she felt pressured to maintain the pace, especially since they had already been moving slower than planned. The weight of guilt settles on her as she believes it is her fault. Ju-hyuk responds firmly, telling her that she should not bear the burden alone. He explains that everyone has been affected by impatience. Public opinion had already turned unfavorable after their strategy for the fifth-floor subjugation failed. Looking back, he acknowledges that it is only natural for people's expectations to grow heavier upon them. That is precisely why they brought Juin along. Speaking bluntly, he states that she is someone who became entangled in their own greed. Because of that, he asks everyone to treat her with genuine compassion and to always prioritize her condition. The group expresses their understanding. Jo-hyuk then stands, saying that they should get going. When asked where, he casually remarks that Juin seems to be in poor condition again, so perhaps they should go tease her a little. They note that starting from today, the second floor has begun, yet their pace is not as delayed as they had feared. This progress is largely thanks to their guildmaster, who carried Juin along the way like a mother kangaroo. Hearing this, Juin internally protests, feeling that she should argue against such a comparison, but she lacks the energy to do so. Thoughts of the next day arise, as their third encampment will be set in the heart of the Neo Plains, beyond the Valley of Despair. Everyone agrees to proceed with the plan. Surprisingly, the group is full of energy, far more than before. Unlike the previous time, when they had to remain constantly on guard and sleep in shifts, the current situation feels almost effortless, like a walk in the park. There is a shared sense of relief in only needing minimal interior watch duties. Once they reach the Neo Plains, the defense team plans to take turns ensuring Juin's safety. Amid the chatter, someone recalls how adorable Juin had been earlier. They laugh about how amusing it was when she cheerfully declared that she wanted to try hitting a monster with the truck. The idea that their gentle food truck owner, who seems incapable of harming even a fly, would say such a thing only makes it funnier. Yet it is also true that she had been genuinely eager to crash into a monster with her truck, and that eagerness now seems as though it could become reality. At that point, Jo-hyuk produces the cursed potion. The others express disbelief that he actually managed to obtain it. He explains that it was ultimately her choice, though he admits that he wishes he could stop her. Someone reminds him that he once said he had seen this happen before, but they would rather not dwell on it. Jo-hyuk briefly reflects that he had intended to kill the person involved back then once they were caught. Even now, he cannot help but wonder whether Juin will be all right after drinking it. Elsewhere, Juin drifts into a dream. In it, she is surrounded by food, happily eating. Someone remarks that the fish skewer is delicious and free of any unpleasant smell. She notices that it is Jo-hyuk speaking. He asks her why she is not eating and comments on how good the kimchi tastes. Looking around, she sees Yura and Jen there as well. They all express how delicious the food is. Praising her cooking, and saying that they feel energized whenever they eat what she prepares. For Juin, who has always associated mealtimes with loneliness, this moment feels profoundly different. The realization that eating together can be such a joyful experience fills her with warmth, making it something truly precious to her. It is said that it is nighttime when Joyuk remarks that the sandwiches feel different from the ones Juin made last time. Today's breakfast consists of manual ham and cheese toast, cereals, a special menu, and strawberry juice. Juin explains that she prepared everything with more of a street food style this time. Juhyuk responds that the food certainly carries a nostalgic taste. Juin then mentions that she also has something to say to the guild members after everyone finishes eating. Once the meal is nearly over, Juhyuk calls for everyone's attention and announces that Juin has something to share. The group begins to wonder what it could be, and he assures them that she can speak freely. Juin explains that, as everyone may already know, tomorrow's dinner will be a choice menu, so they should each select a dish of their liking and inform her by the evening. This announcement fills everyone with excitement, as they comment that her food truck treats are always the best. Jin, however, reminds them that they still need to stay alert for the night ahead. Juhyuk then declares that they will eat whatever the team that kills the most monsters chooses, and there will be no complaints. Hera raises a concern about the defense team, questioning how they fit into this arrangement. Juhyuk responds that the defense team can take their chance at an undeserved win by playing rock, paper, scissors. This suggestion causes some to wonder whether it gives the defense team too much of an advantage. Another member casually points out that anyone who finds it unfair is free to join the defense team instead. Observing the lively debate, Juin begins to think that perhaps she should not have spoken up, but Juhyuk reassures her that it is good to see everyone so energized. Soon after, someone approaches Juin to ask whether the bowls should be placed in a certain area as well. She replies that it is fine, and that she will leave it to them. One of the hunters volunteers to wash the dishes, while she continues preparing the food. As she works, she reflects that since everyone seems focused on monster subjugation, meat will likely be served for lunch. While preparing the day's meals, others notice how quickly her hands move, and they are amazed every time they witness her efficiency. It becomes clear that running a food truck is not a task suited for everyone. He then wonders whether everyone has received and placed 2 rolls of kimbap into their inventories. The group confirms that they have. He proceeds to inform them that they will begin the briefing. According to their plan, they are expected to reach the New River if they continue marching for approximately 6 more hours, meaning they will camp in that area for the day. It is a relief that their pace has been faster than expected and that there have been no serious injuries so far. Nevertheless, he emphasizes that everyone must continue to prioritize their safety moving forward. After 30 minutes spent reorganizing, they prepare to depart. At that moment, Yura approaches Juin and asks whether she truly intends to drink the cursed potion. Juin replies that of course she will drink it, but she wonders whether it tastes extremely disgusting. Yura admits that she is not entirely sure, as she has only heard rumors, but mentions that Naewon once drank it and ended up rapping while shouting curse words. Hearing this, Juin questions whether they are truly talking about the same angelic girl. At that moment, Yuhyuk approaches and tells Juin that she does not have to drink it if she does not feel like it, emphasizing that their current pace is not slow by any means. Juin pauses to think for a while before admitting that she does not feel comfortable with the uncertainty, yet she still asks him to hand over the potion. He warns her that she should only take a single drop. She takes the drop and remarks that it is not as bad as expected, which makes Juhyuk doubt her statement. Juin explains that she is accustomed to tasting all sorts of unusual things while experimenting with food, then casually wonders whether everyone knows that her truck is bulletproof. With the infamous cursed potion now affecting her senses, combined with her unusual tolerance for flavors, her sense of reason seems to fade. She suddenly dashes off with her truck, moving at incredible speed, while the other hunters run after her, commenting that the potion's effects are certainly remarkable. Juin appears exhilarated, declaring that the monster should wait as she comes to deal with them. Meanwhile, Juhyuk anxiously calls out for her to slow down and avoid large monsters, but she pays little attention, enjoying herself far too much. As she encounters a monster with 2 heads, she excitedly reasons that it should be struck twice, and proceeds to do exactly that, finding the experience thrilling. Watching her behavior, Juhyuk begins to wonder whether one of the cursed potion's side effects involves a complete reversal of personality. Juin beams with happiness after defeating one monster, but Juhyuk quickly warns her about another approaching from her left. She swiftly redirects the truck toward a tiger-like creature, knocking it out as well. At that moment, Blackie appears, confused by the sudden commotion and questioning what is happening. Juin casually greets him, saying it has been a while, but tells him not to distract her as she is currently driving. Blackie is startled by how frightening her eyes have become in his absence, while Ju-yuk simply remarks that it is a long story. Soon after, Ju-yuk alerts her that more monsters are approaching from behind. Jun reacts with excitement, thinking of it as an opportunity, and accelerates her truck, crashing into the pursuing monsters and taking them down in a single strike. Meanwhile, the guild members following behind her truck engage in battles of their own. Suddenly, they notice the truck reversing toward them at high speed, prompting Yura to shout for everyone to move out of the way. She cannot help but wonder how Juin managed to avoid running over her allies for so long. Just then, an unusual sound and strange noise fill the air. Ju-yuk quickly identifies the source as a level 20 crimson elephant charging directly toward the truck. He urgently warns Juin that colliding with such a monster in her current state could lead to serious problems due to the potion's effects. However, she confidently reassures him that everything will be fine and continues accelerating toward the elephant, boldly declaring that she is indestructible. A moment unfolds in the past where Juin finds herself trapped in suffocating traffic, an unfamiliar frustration gnawing at her patience. She cannot help but think how ill-timed this congestion is, especially on a day when urgency presses heavily on her. Accustomed only to the dense, ever-moving roads of Seoul, where traffic feels like a natural, almost comforting constant, this standstill feels particularly ironic. Yet beyond this moment, the open paths she now experiences, free of cars and constraints, feel nothing short of liberating, almost like a slice of heaven crafted for someone like her. With that same reckless exhilaration, she barrels forward, fully immersed in the thrill of motion as she charges toward a massive, elephant-like monster. The sense of freedom fuels her, but it quickly turns chaotic as she collides head-on with the creature. Ju-hyuk, watching the unfolding disaster, cannot help but think that the truck will be completely ruined at this rate. In his mind, it would have been far wiser for her to press the pedal just enough to avoid impact rather than embrace it so recklessly. Yet Jiwon seems entirely unfazed, unable to grasp his concern, convinced instead that no monster could withstand 10 full-force crashes. Acting on that belief, she accelerates again, smashing into the elephant with even greater determination, embodying exactly what she claims. Not far away, one watches the scene unfold in disbelief, questioning whether what he is witnessing is merely the effect of some potion. The sheer absurdity of the situation leaves him stunned, while poor Blackie teeters on the brink of unconsciousness, internally lamenting the decision to come along at all. Eventually, they arrive at Dungeon Floor to the Neo River. A collective murmur spreads among them as they observe the truck, still miraculously intact despite repeated collisions with enormous monsters. Its pristine condition defies logic, making it seem less like an ordinary vehicle and more like something extraordinary. Jin, in awe, considers that this might very well be the greatest invention imaginable, a plane-like marvel and the ultimate method of transportation. Ju-hyuk, however, cannot share that enthusiasm. From his perspective, anyone who has endured the passenger seat beside Juin would never dare to praise it so highly. Juin, curious, wonders if he truly had such a difficult time, and though his thoughts are weary, he acknowledges that her relentless driving did allow them to reach the third encampment a full 3 hours ahead of schedule. Despite the success, practical concerns take precedence. Setting up their encampment according to the original plan would be ideal, but the looming rainy season poses a serious threat. At the Neo River, this season can last anywhere from a week to 10 days, transforming the river into a violent, surging force, while simultaneously agitating the local monsters, making them far more dangerous. Anticipating this, Jo-hyuk devises a new strategy. Beginning immediately, they will continue their march for another 3 hours, pushing forward until they reach a downstream crossing point. By doing so, they can leave the area before the rainy season begins, avoiding both the treacherous waters and the heightened aggression of the monsters. As the plan settles among them, Juin's thoughts turn to the enormity of the river itself. She cannot help but wonder how they intend to cross something so vast, especially with the limited resources at their disposal. Before Juin can dwell further on the problem, Jo-hyuk interrupts her train of thought, asking whether she can handle the truck the same way she did earlier. At once, her entire demeanor brightens, enthusiasm returning in full force as she eagerly takes responsibility. This time, Junyoung is invited to climb aboard as well, tasked with placing a protective spell on her. The idea initially comforts him, He imagines a smooth and secure journey, something far more manageable than what he had anticipated before. That illusion shatters the moment he settles into the passenger seat. Almost immediately, regret floods in. His composure collapses as he begins shouting and crying out, convinced that he is moments away from death. Juin, unfazed as ever, casually remarks that she will need to increase her speed due to the urgency of the situation. His panicked protests rise sharply in response, desperate pleas for her to slow down, but his voice goes unheard. The vehicle surges forward regardless, leaving him clinging to whatever stability he can find as chaos unfolds around him. On the other side, the automated driving system finally disengages, signaling their arrival at the downstream region of the Neo River. Juin feels a surge of exhilaration. Driving without restraint after so long fills her with a refreshing sense of freedom. But that excitement is quickly overshadowed. The sky begins to shift ominously, and it becomes apparent that the rainy season may arrive earlier than expected. Recognizing the danger, Juhyuk orders everyone to proceed with extreme caution. He instructs the group to board their motorboats, and soon they are all navigating the river's surface. As they move forward, Juin notices something strange. The formation is breaking apart. Confusion sets in as she watches the others scatter. Yura explains that a special monster inhabits this area, one that only appears during the rainy season at the downstream of the Neo River. Since the rain has not yet begun, they had assumed it would not appear today. But the moment those words are spoken, the sky answers. Rain begins to fall. As if summoned by the mere acknowledgement of its existence, the downpour intensifies almost instantly. Juhyuk's instincts prove correct, and urgency sharpens his voice as he commands everyone to spread out further. The monster is coming. Tension spikes as one of the hunters reports that they are stuck on what appears to be a reef, unable to move. Yet something feels wrong. This is no ordinary obstruction. Juin peers downward, unease creeping into her thoughts as she questions what lies beneath them. Then the river erupts. Creatures begin bursting from the waterfish-like monsters surging upward in violent waves. Someone calls out to Hunter Li-Yun, asking him to hold them off while the others focus on protecting Juin. Though his mana is currently unusable, he forces himself into action, striking down the creatures as swiftly as he can, despite the overwhelming numbers leaping toward them. Yura watches in disbelief, her mind struggling to process the chaos. The monsters of the Neo River are not only surfacing, they are launching themselves into the air. She urgently instructs everyone to grip the bottom handles of their boats tightly. Even as they comply, more danger reveals itself above them. The boss of the Neo Plains has arrived. A voice cries out, urging everyone to look up. The security team remains dangerously close to the water, where the force of the rain and the rising threats grow more intense by the second. They must abandon the Neo River immediately. In the midst of this crisis, Juin asks whether the boss can be subdued through direct attacks. Yura quickly dismisses the idea, explaining that Neo is no ordinary monster mana, has no effect against it. The realization settles heavily over them. They are facing a threat they cannot fight in conventional ways. Orders come swiftly. They must abandon the boats. Yura grabs hold of Juin and prepares to jump. As they leap, she tells Juin to trust her, warning that the landing might hurt a little. But the reality is far harsher than the reassurance suggests. Juin cries out mid-fall, realizing that this is far from a little pain. Panic surges as she plummets, her thoughts racing. She cannot swim, and from this height, survival seems impossible. Yet instead of crashing into water, she lands on something unexpected. A soft, yielding surface catches her, a bed-like structure that absorbs her fall completely. For a moment, she can hardly comprehend what has just happened. Juhyuk's voice reaches her, calling out urgently to ask if she is all right. She responds that she is unharmed, quickly asking about him and the rest of the team. As she looks around, however, her relief falters. Yura and the others are not as fortunate. They fall not onto the strange cushioning surface, but straight into the river below. The sound of cracking and harsh impacts echoes through the chaos. One by one, they disappear into the water, their bodies going still, offering no response at all. Juin looks at them and immediately begins shouting that they must rescue the defense team at once, urging everyone to hurry. Meanwhile, Juhyuk cautions her, pointing out how dangerous it is for her to lean so far over the edge. At that very moment, she hears someone announce that the defense team has successfully accomplished their mission. Yura approaches Juin, apologizing for having thrown her so suddenly and anxiously wondering whether she is hurt. She explains that she had been unable to use her mana and did not know what to do in that situation, but regardless, She is simply relieved that Juin is safe. As she speaks, she notices something unexpected. Juin is crying. Concerned, Yura steps closer and asks why she is in tears. Through her sobs, Juin admits that it is because of her that everyone had to go through so much hardship. Yura gently reassures her that everyone is completely fine and urges her not to cry. As Jo-hyuk observes this touching exchange, he reflects on how, despite her worries, Yura still manages to fulfill her responsibilities well. Yet, even as he acknowledges this, he finds himself wondering about something he cannot quite put into words. The scene shifts to Juin, whose eyes are swollen and puffy. Someone playfully teases her, remarking that her eyes are now the exact same color as seasoning sauce. Embarrassed, Juin protests and tells them to stop making fun of her, explaining that she only cried because she was worried about Yura. She adds that dungeons are unpredictable and dangerous places, and if the defense team had not been there, things could have turned out much worse. Soon, the focus returns to cooking. The hunters begin commenting on the incredible aroma filling the air, remarking that the dish would taste amazing, even on its own. Yura, however, cautions them not to come too close and reminds them to keep their distance. Meanwhile, Juin carefully adds various ingredients, creating a perfect harmony of flavors that blend both sea and land. Squid and pork belly come together beautifully, and as expected, the richness of pork belly grease enhances the taste of the squid. Today's menu is a squid and pork belly bulgogi set. Juin then turns to Yura and gently feeds her the first bite. As Yura tastes the dish, she is overwhelmed with delight and half-jokingly expresses a desire to live with Juin so she can enjoy her cooking every day, insisting that she is entirely serious about it. On the other side, Juin notices Jo-hyuk staring and questions him about what he is looking at while eating. Jo-hyuk hesitates for a moment before brushing it off, then shifts the topic by asking about his plans regarding the choice menu. He explains that after the meal, he intends to gather all the team leaders, expressing his curiosity and anticipation about what kind of strategies they will propose. Soon after, the monster kill records are presented, prompting confusion among the group. They question how it is possible that everyone's kill count is so similar, and wonder if this was orchestrated by the command team. Their attention then shifts to the command team's record, which shows 0 kills, raising even more questions about how they contributed. It becomes clear, however, that without the decisive movements and coordination of the command team, none of them would have made it this far. Hearing this, the defense team speaks up, suggesting that by that logic, they should be considered in the lead. After all, not only did they defeat monsters, but they also fulfilled the crucial role of protecting Juin throughout the ordeal. They fall silent for a moment, each considering the situation, before collectively acknowledging that the defense team's claim is indeed valid. After some deliberation, it is decided that this time, the menu selection will be granted to them. Juin approaches Yura with a bright expression and congratulates her, asking whether their team has already reached a decision. Yura confirms that they have, and after a brief pause, she finally reveals the dish they have chosen. The scene then shifts to Jo-hyuk, who remarks to Juin that she seems to be fitting in quite well with the group now. Nearby, milk is being heated with sugar, a simple drink that happens to be one of his personal favorites. He offers it to her, encouraging her to give it a try. Juin accepts it gratefully and thanks him. As he glances at her, he observes that it seems as though all the tension from the day's events has finally drained from her body, though she now cannot stop sneezing. Noticing this, he steps closer and gently places a muffler around her neck, explaining that the wind is cold and that he has heard keeping the neck warm helps to warm the entire body. Juin looks at him, surprised by the gesture, and thanks him sincerely. She remarks that the scarf feels as though it is enchanted with magic because of how warm it is. He confirms that it was specially made for cold weather, adding that it makes him genuinely happy to see that she now trusts them so fully. Even so, he admits that he would still like to be the one she trusts the most. She comments that such a thing might be difficult for now, since at present, her friends and her team are the ones she trusts most. Jo-hyuk responds with mild frustration, pointing out that he was the one who chose that team in the first place, and wonders if she could not make an exception just for him. Juin, however, refuses. He relents with a small sigh, then casually points out that she has milk on her mouth. After wiping it away, Juin brings up something that has been on her mind ever since she entered the dungeon. She asks how they managed to secure the Neo planes when the boss there still remains undefeated. Jo-hyuk explains that according to the system, Neo is a special type of monster that cannot be attacked. Because of this, they had no choice but to traverse the planes manually. In the past, there were no alternative methods to navigate such areas within dungeons. Juin reflects on how dungeons are filled with extraordinary phenomena, realizing that there is still so much she has yet to learn. Even so, she finds herself wondering about the dungeon they will be visiting next. The following day, they enter Dungeon Floor 2, known as Esrata Lake. Juin cannot help but remark that, although it feels strange to say so, the place resembles a vacation spot more than a dungeon. Ju-hyuk explains that after the boss was defeated and the third floor was unlocked, the dungeon underwent significant changes. This particular area has since been repurposed as a resting zone for intermediate-level hunters and above before they proceed further. He suggests that once their mission is complete, they should return and properly enjoy the place. Juin agrees, though she adds that she would prefer not to return under the same circumstances as before. As she speaks, she wonders aloud why she always seems to end up being carried around like this. Jo-hyuk explains that, given the time constraints, they have little choice. Access to the third floor is only possible through a specific passage that appears at Esrata Lake twice a day, and it remains open for just 1 hour each time. To reach it, they must travel to an island known as Asada Earth, located at the center of the lake. The inner sanctum of the temple on that island serves as the gateway to the third floor. Hearing this, Juin realizes that the timing could not be more perfect. At that very moment, Jo-hyuk raises his voice, calling for everyone to move out, urging them to head forward without delay. The spirit of swiftness, the incarnation of annihilation, Jo-hyuk pulls out his spear. As the monsters surge toward them in a relentless wave, he advances without hesitation, striking them down one by one with precise, lethal movements. There is something she has learned during her research about him. His strength builds with every monster he defeats, his stats stacking continuously. The longer he focuses on a single target, the more his skill, accuracy, and power intensify to terrifying levels. Jo-hyuk, known by his second alias as the Berserker, embodies controlled chaos. Even after being locked in this brutal battle for quite some time, she feels no discomfort whatsoever. That alone tells her everything. There has not been a single unnecessary movement so far. Every action, every strike, every step he takes is efficient and deliberate. As expected, Jo-hyuk proves himself to be an extraordinary individual. At last, they safely arrive at Dungeon Floor 3. Juin quietly reflects that she has been to this floor before. However, Jo-hyuk wastes no time lingering, recognizing that there is no benefit in staying on this map longer than necessary. He moves with urgency, knowing full well that this dungeon is saturated with unpleasant memories. The curse effect cast over the entire area makes it even more dangerous. The longer one remains, the higher the chance of developing an addiction. Naturally, this is one of the locations most avoided by the 100, especially within the lower floors. Unaware of this in the past, she had nearly fallen victim to the curse herself, while pushing her limits and giving everything she had in preparation for customers. Now, as she reflects, a thought crosses her mind. Has she already explored all the unexplored dungeons on floors 3 and 4? That leads her back to something she had intended to ask Blackie. Lately, it has become increasingly difficult to see his face. She wonders if it might have something to do with her renovating the truck, but he had already dismissed that possibility, telling her not to worry about it. Yet, she finds it impossible not to, and before she can press further, she realizes he is already gone. Still, a firm resolve settles within her. Next time he appears, she will not let it slide. Whatever he is hiding, she is determined to uncover it, even if it means squeezing the truth out of him herself. At the same time, the girls positioned as the rear guards continue casting a curse prevention spell over all the guild members. The sustained effort begins to take a visible toll on them, their energy steadily draining under the strain. Despite this, one of them reassures the others that everything will be fine, reminding them that they still have Juin's kimbap. Their spirits lift as they take in the sight before them, rows of neatly prepared rolls, along with portions of kimchi that make the meal feel even more complete. Just as one hunter eagerly reaches out to take a bite, a monster suddenly intervenes, striking the food from his hands. The loss ignites immediate anger within him. In frustration, he pulls out a magic circle and attempts to retaliate, launching an attack toward the creature. However, in that crucial moment, he recalls that his magic is no longer casting properly due to his depleted mana reserves. His expression tightens as realization sinks in. The monster lunges toward him, ready to deliver a finishing blow. For a brief instant, he believes it is the end. But at that exact moment, another hunter steps in without hesitation, drawing out his spear and intercepting the attack. While holding the line, he urges him to hurry and eat his kimbap, knowing that regaining mana is the only way to survive. After the guild members replenish their mana with Juin's kimbap, their strength returns steadily. With renewed energy, they push forward and are ultimately able to safely reach the end of the deserted land map. Inwardly, each of them expresses deep gratitude toward Juin, recognizing that her preparations have made all the difference in their survival. The scene then shifts, showing the hunters gathering around Juin, eagerly asking what is on the menu for dinner. Their hands tremble slightly, not out of fear, but anticipation. They are desperate to know what meal she has prepared this time. Juin, however, keeps them in suspense, revealing only that it is a secret before returning to her cooking. As she continues her work, she entrusts Juyuk with the task of boiling the noodles. He acknowledges her request without hesitation, stepping into the role of today's meal assistant. In a quieter moment, he expresses his gratitude toward her, admitting that ever since she joined the guild, everyone has been moving at an unexpectedly fast pace. More than that, it feels as though each member is steadily growing stronger. At this rate, even subjugating Floor 5 no longer seems like an impossible dream. At the mention of Floor 5, Juin recalls something important. She wonders why the guild has not yet been informed about it. Juyuk reveals that it was a matter even she had hesitated to bring up, and that she had only shared it with him. By doing so, she had entrusted him with that knowledge, and he intends to honor that trust. His words cause a faint blush to rise on her cheeks. She thanks him sincerely, while Juyuk calmly responds that it is only natural. A secret entrusted to him is one he will protect without question. Shifting back to the present, she announces that the soup is finished and offers him a taste. She carefully feeds him a spoonful, watching for his reaction as she asks how it is. He responds that the flavor is refreshing and well-balanced. Suddenly, he notices a change in her expression and asks, "What is wrong?" She quickly realizes that the noodles are about to stick together. He reassures her that he has already turned off the stove in time. Without taken care of, they proceed to mix the sauce into the noodles. As the aroma begins to spread, the other hunters catch the familiar scent. Their excitement builds instantly, their anticipation reaching its peak. Finally, Juin reveals the long-awaited answer. The first Happy Day menu is ramen, prepared in accordance with the defense team's request. Ramen stands as a rather common dish, widely considered the king of late-night snacks. Its taste becomes almost heavenly when eaten outside, and at this very moment, the dungeon transforms into something akin to paradise. Yura feels immense happiness, wondering if this is truly the ramen she knows, because it tastes unbelievably good. She reflects that ramen broth can make anything taste better, yet questions how it can possibly taste this good. They urge Juin to come over and eat with them, but she insists that they should eat first, as she still has things left to do. Returning to her place, she resumes cooking, preparing the additional menu for the Daejajang ramen. She asks everyone to have a bowl of it as well, which makes Yura think that she is genuinely kind. In truth, Juin prepares it because she cannot handle spicy food. After finishing, she finally returns to eat. Someone shares the spicy seafood ramen, followed by the savory jajang ramen, and it becomes evident that their dear Juin truly knows how to enjoy food in the right order. Laura suggests that she should have some more ramen, but Juin declines, knowing she would not be able to finish that much. Yura remarks that even 2 bowls of ramen are too much for her, yet Juin casually questions whether one can ever feel full after eating just a single pack of ramen. She adds that one should eat at least 3 packs, with rice included. The two of them exchange glances, each lost in their own thoughts. They have always wondered about this. How can Juin be so skilled at cooking while eating so little? Meanwhile, Juin finds herself questioning how Yura can move so easily after eating so much. The scene then shifts to Yura practicing her moves, her body completely exhausted. In the midst of this, she notices that both Juin and Joyuk are engaged in a pleasant conversation. Joyuk approaches Juin and presents her with the gift flowers. Juin wonders about them, questioning what kind of flowers they are. Joyuk explains that they are special flowers that only bloom within this map. She hesitates, recalling that there is a high likelihood of being cursed in this place, and questions whether it is truly safe to touch them. Joyuk reassures her that the fact the flowers bloom means there is no curse, making them safe to handle. Juin accepts the flower, expressing her gratitude, as it is her first time receiving flowers as a gift. She then wonders about the name of the flower. Joyuk explains that it is called Luce, meaning a bright light of hope, a flower that blooms beautifully even within a cursed land, a name that suits it perfectly. Meanwhile, Yura watches everything unfold, internally questioning what kind of spectacle she is witnessing. In reality, Juin and Yura have known each other for a very long time. To Yura, the Juyuk standing before her, once like a brother, now appears as nothing more than a shameless man attempting to seduce the innocent youngest member. After Juin leaves, Yura approaches Juyuk and reveals that the flower he gave was actually poisonous. Juyuk then wonders just how long she has been standing there, watching everything. She replies that it is not important, insisting that he should simply answer her question. She brings up the phrase, bright light of hope, questioning when it became a flower of hope, and wonders if perhaps he likes Juin. Juyuk is caught off guard, questioning what this sudden line of thought is. Meanwhile, Yura presses him for a proper answer, directly asking whether he likes her. He responds that it would not be strange for him to like her, which makes Yura question whether he is being serious right now. He then tells her to think about it. Has she ever rested this comfortably or eaten so well during a subjugation? The morale of their subjugation team has never been this high before, and as the guild leader, it is something he can only feel grateful for. Yura wonders if this is simply how he treats competent guild members. As the guild leader, he explains that she is not just competent. In his opinion, Juin is the most amazing awakened among all awakened. This makes Yura question whether he truly only likes her as a guild member. Without warning, she delivers a critical hit to him, leaving him startled and questioning what just happened. Yura then leaves, stating that it is a punishment for his passive manipulation and for planting the wrong ideas. Internally, she concludes that he is not allowed to go near Juin from now on. On the other hand, Juin is seen inside her tent, quietly looking at the flowers. She wonders if there is any way to preserve them for a little longer. The next morning, she remarks that thanks to their combined efforts, they have reached the 4th floor earlier than expected. Juyuk informs everyone that it still takes about 6 days to reach the center of the 4th floor, something they are already aware of. He reminds them that the monsters on this floor are highly intelligent and cunning, so they must not let their guard down even for a second. Everyone also expresses their gratitude for the breakfast, praising how wonderful it was. Yura tells Juin that thanks to her, the subjugation has become incredibly enjoyable. Juin responds that if that is the case, she will make it even better by preparing meals in the future. Meanwhile, Yura signals to someone to stay away, which leaves them extremely annoyed. Suddenly, Jo-hyuk recalls his earlier conversation with Juin, remembering how she told him that she is also one of the guild members. He points out that it is still too dangerous, explaining that the monsters on the 4th floor are different from the ones they have encountered so far. Moreover, they are about to engage in precision warfare rather than maneuver warfare. What concerns him most is whether she, as a dungeon newbie, can endure it. However, Juin firmly states that she did not join this guild just to participate in a single subjugation. Everyone will face the same danger on the 5th floor, and that is exactly why she wants to make it possible for them to rest comfortably. She adds that if things become too dangerous, she can always retreat to a safe place. Jo-hyuk hesitates, but she interrupts his doubts, declaring that this is her decision and therefore her responsibility. She is coming with him, and she wants to see what the end of this journey looks like. At that moment, he also recalls when Yura asked him whether he liked Juin and how he denied it. Internally, he notices that they are nearing the 4th floor and forces himself to focus, reminding himself that he cannot allow his personal feelings to interfere. The tunnel reveals itself in the aftermath of an earthquake that struck Duncan, exposing what had long been hidden beneath the surface. It appears that a stone tablet, once standing firmly at the entrance of what was known as the Fairy Kingdom, has collapsed due to the tremors. This place, once a thriving habitat for fairy-like monsters, now lies in ruins. For reasons unknown, the fairies had migrated long ago, abandoning the area and leaving behind only remnants of their existence. Juin, observing the surroundings, finds herself wondering whether these fairy monsters resembled pixies, small-bodied creatures with delicate butterfly wings. Juyuk confirms her assumption, though he is caught off guard by how she already seems to know what they look like. Juin speculates that perhaps not all of the fairies have left, suggesting that some might still linger within the ruins. At that very moment, Juyuk notices something unusual. His attention sharpens, and he quickly realizes that a monster is approaching. Without hesitation, he shouts for her to move away immediately. Before she can fully react, she is struck and knocked down. A cough escapes her as she struggles to regain her senses, her mind clouded with confusion. As she opens her eyes, she stares at the presence in front of her, unable to comprehend what she is seeing. Ju-yuk explains that these monsters are the very reason behind the mass migration of the fairies. The area, he warns, is filled with creatures capable of causing intense confusion, distorting perception itself. He urges her not to trust what she sees. She realizes the danger instantly, understanding that a single sting from such a creature could mean death within moments. Despite the threat, Jo-yuk reassures her, confident in his ability to handle the situation. However, before he can act, Hera suddenly intervenes. She steps in front of him and delivers a decisive strike, her blow landing with such force that the monster vanishes. Without wasting time, she informs the rest of the defense team that she will leave the remaining threats to them. The others quickly take action, summoning their firewalls and unleashing blazing attacks that drag the monster down and eliminate it. Ju-in watches everything unfold, her eyes filled with awe as she takes in their strength and coordination. The display leaves her deeply impressed. After Ju-hak rises to rank 1, the world's reaction toward him splits into two distinct extremes. On one side are those who constantly pressure him, criticizing his every move and expecting him to assist their parties, to help them grow stronger and achieve recognition. On the other side are those who place him on a pedestal, treating him not as an ordinary human, but as a flawless being, an ultimate weapon beyond comparison. Yet not everyone views him in such rigid ways. There exists someone who possesses even greater skill than he does, someone in whose presence he feels at ease. This realization stirs a thought within him. Perhaps he desires recognition from Ju-in. As she approaches him and calls out, she notices something unusual in his expression. He appears unsettled, as though he has seen something he was never meant to witness. She begins to tease him, suggesting that perhaps he is afraid of bugs. She recalls how visibly uncomfortable he looked when a swarm of mosquitoes appeared earlier. Amused, she assures him that she will keep his secret, knowing he must maintain his composed image as a guildmaster. She continues, playfully pointing out that even though he holds the top rank, having a fear makes him seem more human. Perhaps, she admits, that is why she feels so comfortable around him. Ju-hyuk listens, inwardly reflecting that if he truly feared bugs, he would have never become a hunter in the first place. The thought crosses his mind, yet he chooses not to voice it. Instead, he allows her teasing to continue, finding an unexpected sense of ease in the moment. Playing along, he remarks that it is unfortunate she has uncovered a secret he wished to keep hidden. In return, he suggests that she should reveal a secret of her own. Ju-in pauses for a moment, sensing the strange direction their conversation has taken, and questions why it is even heading that way. Jo-hyuk responds with quiet honesty, explaining that he does not wish to be the only one placed at a disadvantage. His words linger between them, prompting her to consider his request. After a brief hesitation, she decides that, in that case, she will share something of her own. She reveals that her strength has started to rise again. Ju-hyuk immediately turns his attention to this, asking how much it has increased. She answers simply that it has gone up by 1 point. Her strength stat now stands at 6. However, despite this improvement, she is not leveling up or raising her stats any further. This confuses him, and he questions her reasoning, wondering whether leveling up and increasing her stats would not make things easier for her, especially when it comes to cooking. Ju-in explains that doing so would actually create a problem due to the nature of her skill. If she levels up too much, she will lose the ability to enter certain dungeons. Her explanation carries a weight of limitation rather than opportunity. Ju-hyuk considers this and responds that, even so, there are other dungeons on the 5th floor that she could explore. As he speaks, he effortlessly eliminates another monster nearby, his movement so swift and precise that Ju-in does not even register when it happens. She is left completely taken aback, wondering how he managed to deal with the threat without her noticing at all. Regaining her composure, she shifts the conversation, explaining that regardless of their current situation, there is a pressing issue. If they fail to secure more than half of the dungeon, Fisher dungeons will begin to appear. Her voice carries a hint of personal history as she recalls that her parents were first-generation hunters. They lost their lives 20 years ago while blocking out a Fisher dungeon. Because of that tragedy, her grandmother had always warned her to stay away from both hunters and dungeons. Yet, standing here now, she cannot help but reflect on the irony. She is not even a hunter, and still, she finds herself deep within a dungeon. Ju-hyuk responds with reassurance, telling her not to worry, promising that his guild will protect her. However, he emphasizes that she must always prioritize her own safety above all else. Ju-in answers with quiet confidence, stating that she will remain safe as long as she relies on her skill. She adds that she has never encountered any problems within the 5th floor dungeons. Still, she acknowledges that dungeons are not the only dangerous spaces. She is certain that once their current mission is complete, things will become even more hectic. From this point onward, the situation will only grow more complicated. Before she can continue further, Jo-hyuk interrupts her with an unexpected request. If there are any other secrets she has not revealed, he asks her to keep them to herself and not share them with anyone, including him. His tone is firm, carrying a sense of caution rather than curiosity. At that moment, Jen's voice echoes from a distance, breaking the tension as she calls out to them, impatiently questioning why the two of them are moving so slowly, as if they are crawling. Jo-hyuk reacts immediately, reaching out and taking Ju-in's hand, urging her that they should move. Together they advance and finally arrive at the 3rd floor of the dungeon, a forest that once belonged to the emigrated fairies. The group decides to reorganize at this point. Jo-hyuk mentions that they will need to replenish their mana before proceeding further. As he speaks, Ju-in becomes aware of something else entirely, his hand still holding hers. She points it out, and he quickly lets go, apologizing and explaining that he acted out of urgency. She reassures him that it is fine, brushing off the moment without making much of it. Just then, a faint sound reaches her ears. It is the soft, unmistakable cry of a cat. She turns instinctively and spots it. A small, seemingly harmless creature. Drawn by its appearance, she calls out to it, inviting it to come closer. But, in the very next instant, Jo-hyuk's earlier warning resurfaces in her mind. This area is filled with monsters capable of creating illusions, creatures that distort reality itself. She reminds herself not to trust what her eyes show her. A realization strikes her. There is a real possibility that the cat in front of her is not a cat at all. Her expression shifts as she quickly withdraws her invitation, telling it not to come any closer. Almost immediately, a barrier forms around her, enclosing her within its invisible boundary. Her eyes widen in shock as she recognizes the presence before her. Standing there is Blackie. Blackie looks at her with familiarity, breaking the silence by remarking that it has been a long time since they last met. Blackie suddenly leaps forward, vaulting over Ju-in with effortless agility, before lightly poking her, as a reminder that dungeons are perilous places where caution is essential. At that very moment, Jo-hyuk arrives and questions her about what has happened. Ju-in explains that she has discovered what appears to be a strand of cat hair. In response, he warns her not to trust any animal she encounters within this map, explaining that the fairies inhabiting the area are not harmless creatures, but dangerous monsters capable of shapeshifting into adorable animals to lure hunters, only to devour them once they are close enough. He further elaborates that even high-level rankers struggle in this environment, as surviving here requires exceptional mental resistance to avoid losing one's sanity. With this in mind, he decides it would be best to provide her with a buff item first. Meanwhile, Blackie is seen wandering about carefree, amusing himself by catching butterflies and eating them without concern. Shortly afterward, another hunter approaches Ju-in and asks how she feels after equipping her new items. She responds that she feels completely reinvigorated, noting that the fairies are now unable to approach her or induce hallucinations. She confidently claims that, at this point, not even the ancestors of the fairies would be capable of affecting her mind. The hunter then remarks on how unusually strong her bond with her spirit appears to be. Ju-in, slightly puzzled, questions whether such closeness is not common among hunters and their spirits. However, the hunter clarifies that such relationships are typically distant and almost heretical in nature, with communication occurring only when necessary, usually limited to commands or essential exchanges. This revelation leads Ju-in to wonder whether Blackie's level might surpass even that of mid to high-ranking spirits. In response, Blackie casually boasts that if he were to summon all inferior spirits to his side, the entire spirit world would come to a standstill. Ju-in dismisses this as a joke, though she cannot help but feel a growing curiosity. It has been a long time since she last saw Blackie, and she finds herself unsure of what to ask him first, especially given how much he seems to be concealing. Suddenly, Blackie reaches out to her telepathically. She is startled, questioning how she can hear him when he is not speaking aloud. He explains that this is a form of direct communication between spirits and their contractors, instructing her not to respond, but simply to listen. He begins to reveal that dungeons do not appear randomly. Rather, they come into existence because they are necessary. They are manifestations tied to a phenomenon that occurs when awakened hunters fail to enter them. Although entering dungeons is mandatory for awakened individuals, there are some who refuse and attempt to continue living ordinary lives. However, Such individuals are far more likely to meet an early death. According to him, this happens for one of two reasons. Either they are eventually dragged into a dungeon unprepared and die, or they succumb to the overwhelming burden of their own uncontrolled powers. This, he explains, is the inevitable price of the abilities granted to hunters. Juin is left deeply unsettled by this revelation, silently questioning whether what Blackie has said could truly be real, and if so, how cruel such a system must be. Returning to the present, one of the hunters observes that Juin seems to have been in a poor mood since the previous day, wondering if something might have happened on the third floor. Yura reflects on this as well, noting that, to her knowledge, Juin did not appear to have suffered any hallucination attack during that time. As she cooks, Juin finds her thoughts drifting back to what Blackie had told her, that a dungeon is not merely a place, but something alive, something created out of necessity and constantly changing. The idea lingers heavily in her mind, and she begins to question its meaning. If dungeons are truly born out of necessity, then does that imply that the people who have died within them also died out of necessity? The thought unsettles her further, leading her to wonder, almost fearfully, whether that cruel logic would extend even to her own parents. Sensing her turmoil, Blackie gently tells her that he is sorry and promises that he will reveal everything to her when the time is right. Juin accepts this for now, but she firmly responds that no one ever asked for dungeons to exist in the first place. Even as she says this, she realizes she is spiraling into thoughts that will only distract her, and she forces herself to stop. She reminds herself that she needs to focus on the present on cooking. She tastes the dish thoughtfully and decides to refine it further. She adds more salted shrimp for depth, then incorporates well-cooked sundae made from various internal organs. To enhance the richness, she pours in pork broth that has been boiled until it reaches a thick, milky white consistency. She completes the dish with a seasoning of red pepper sauce prepared according to her grandmother's secret recipe, and finally adds the special noodles. Today's menu is Sunday rice soup. Once everything is ready, she informs the team one by one that the food has been prepared. Rice soup, with its many variations, is known for being both hearty and comforting, making it an ideal meal in such an environment. The team members can hardly believe that they are eating something like this inside a dungeon. Some mix rice directly into the soup and pair it with kimchi, while others dip pieces of meat into the broth or stir in the noodles. The atmosphere quickly becomes lively, filled with enjoyment and satisfaction as everyone eats. Watching them, Juin feels a quiet sense of happiness. It pleases her to see everyone enjoying their meal, and she reflects that it was worth attempting even if it had been difficult. The buff effect she gained from using her today's recommendation skill is known to disappear after a day, but this leads her to consider a new possibility. What if she prepares the ingredients in advance? She recalls how Joyuk once brought sandwiches she had made earlier, and realizes that the food she had already sold did not vanish afterward. Since he never mentioned the sandwiches disappearing, she suspects that the same rule might apply here. Her recent experiment confirms it. After finishing cooking, the ingredients she prepared for the next day remain intact instead of disappearing. This discovery feels like a complete success, opening up new possibilities for her. Later, she wonders if she should step outside for a walk and get some fresh air. As she wanders, her thoughts return once again to the unsettling idea of necessity. She questions whether even young girls, people like herself, could be considered things created out of necessity. The thought feels strange and unsettling, as though there is something fundamentally wrong about it. At that moment, Joyuk appears and asks what she is doing. Juin, still preoccupied, asks him if he happens to know anything about a particular tombstone nearby. He questions whether it is bothering her, but she replies that it is not exactly that. Rather, it simply gives her an odd feeling she cannot explain. Joyuk explains that it is true this is the only place on the 4th floor where such a tombstone exists, which in itself makes it unusual. He adds that nothing happens even when it is touched, demonstrating this by placing his hand on it without consequence. When the tombstone was first discovered, it drew considerable attention, especially because it shares the same size and engraving style as another tombstone found on the lower floors. Curious, Juin asks if there is a similar tombstone on the 1st floor. Joyuk confirms that there is, explaining that the one on the 1st floor bears a symbol representing the earth, while the one on the 4th floor is marked with a symbol of the sun. This leads Juin to wonder if there are more such tombstones scattered throughout the dungeon. Joyuk replies that, according to all available analysis, no tombstones of this kind have been found on the 2nd or 3rd floors. However, The known ones share a single common feature. Each is engraved with the name of the dungeon. He further explains that these stones were discovered at the starting points of what are known as fallen dungeons. Hearing this, a realization strikes Ju-in. Among the dungeons she has visited, she distinctly remembers one that fits this description: the fallen sanctuary of the Fire Spirit King. Ju-hyuk confirms the existence of a tombstone on the 5th floor, a place she herself has already reached. He explains that one of the core responsibilities of a subjugation team is to locate and recover such tombstones. What stands before them now, however, is not just any dungeon. He reveals that this very dungeon was once known as the Fallen Temple of Light. The revelation unsettles her. If the name of a dungeon can change, then its nature must not be fixed either. Ju-hyuk affirms this, explaining that the transformation occurred after the boss, an entity embodying earth-like light and fire, was cleared. This leads to a chilling implication. If light and fire once ruled here, then sky, darkness, and water must still exist somewhere, waiting to be uncovered. If they truly discover a tombstone tied to fire on the 5th floor, Jo-hyuk believes it will strongly support his hypothesis that this dungeon is not ordinary, but rather a realm belonging to fallen, unknown beings. When she questions what kind of beings he is referring to, he elaborates carefully. Among the abilities observed in Wicked Hunters so far, there are 2 distinct types that define their attributes: magic and spirits. His words stir something in her memory. She recalls Blackie. Once, she had asked him about his level, whether he surpassed even mid-tier spirits. His response had been unsettling. If he were to summon all spirits inferior to him, the entire spirit world would come to a halt. Even more disturbingly, there had never been any record of someone forming a contract with an upper-class spirit or anything beyond that level. If Jo-hyuk's hypothesis holds any truth, then it becomes unavoidable. They will have to confront Blackie directly. Questions linger heavily in her mind. Why has he been hiding things from her? And, more importantly, is he truly on their side? As these thoughts weigh on her, the group continues moving forward. They leave the cave behind and venture deeper into the dungeon. With each step, the atmosphere grows heavier, darker, more suffocating. At the same time, Blackie's presence becomes increasingly distant. Though he still occasionally climbs onto her shoulder, perching there as he always has, he no longer speaks. It is as if he has forgotten how to. She cannot ignore the unease building within her. Doubt begins to creep in, despite her efforts to suppress it. She does not want to suspect Blackie, yet his silence feels deliberate. It feels like concealment. Before her thoughts can spiral further, Jo-hyuk calls out to her. He begins distributing emergency supplies he had prepared in advance, anticipating unforeseen dangers. He asks if she has enough space in her inventory. She replies affirmatively, though inwardly she reflects on the absurdity of the question. Her inventory, after all, has no limit. The truth almost slips out, but she stops herself just in time. Sensing her hesitation, Jo-hyuk asks what is wrong. She quickly brushes it off, insisting that it is nothing, and instead shifts her attention to the items he is offering. He explains that they are elixirs crafted by the Second Arya Guildmaster, exceptional recovery potions capable of producing effects equivalent to advanced healing. He instructs her to carry 10 of them for now. She questions his decision, pointing out that he might need them more than she does. The cost alone makes her hesitant. However, Jo-hyuk reassures her, without hesitation, money is not an issue for him. She tries to argue further, reminding him that he already has a full team of bodyguards. Yet he counters firmly, stating that the team consists of only 4 members, far from sufficient given the dangers ahead. By the time they reach the center of the 4th floor, their progress slows. Jo-hyuk attempts to hand her more supplies, but it becomes clear that she cannot carry any additional items. He urges her to take another item, insisting gently despite her hesitation. When she looks at it, she immediately recognizes it: a gate stone. Confusion flickers across her face as she questions why he would hand over something so valuable, something that should rightfully be reserved for guild use. Jo-hyuk explains that the gate stone is not merely a guild asset, but a lifeline. If they encounter a major threat on the 5th floor, she must use it without hesitation to escape the dungeon. She is to leave immediately, survive, and wait until the path to the 5th floor is reopened before returning. His reasoning is firm. Until then, she needs to remain under his protection. For that, he asks her to keep the gate stone with her at all times. His words, though practical, carry a quiet concern that does not go unnoticed. A small smile forms on her face, subtle but genuine. The scene shifts, and they are now by the truck. Ju-yuk asks her if she happens to have a towel. Without much thought, she hands him one, casually mentioning that he can wipe with it as it is, without even wetting it. He studies it briefly, noting that it appears to be an ordinary dry towel, yet shrugs and accepts it anyway. As he uses it, however, he realizes something unusual. It does not get dirty, no matter how much he wipes. She reveals, almost proudly, that it is actually her favorite item. Soon, preparations for cooking begin. Fresh beef ribs, delivered earlier that morning, are carefully cut and thoroughly drained of blood. She moves with precision, first chopping the vegetables into neat, bite-sized pieces. Every step is methodical, practiced, almost instinctive. As she begins working on the seasoning, Ju-yuk steps in, offering to take over that part. She watches him with mild amusement, commenting on how impressive his willingness to take on so much work is. When she asks him to pour in rice water, he pauses, recalling her earlier claim that her strength had only increased by a single point. His remark prompts her to respond slyly. Had he not told her to keep using that excuse? If that is the case, then she might as well take full advantage of it. To him, she appears almost mischievous in that moment, a far cry from the image she usually presents. He cannot help but think of her as a rather cunning boss. Once the dish is complete, she offers him a taste. He samples it and immediately raises his thumb in approval, declaring it amazing. From a distance, the other hunters observe the interaction with growing curiosity. Something about the two of them feels unusual, too familiar, too synchronized. One of them voices this suspicion aloud, wondering if there is something going on between them. Yura, however, simply responds that she has no idea. Another hunter suggests that perhaps someone should speak to her directly. Later, as they all gather for dinner, the conversation takes a more personal turn. One of the hunters casually asks her if she has a boyfriend.